Oh yeah, this is where we're going today.
Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Thursday. It's August the 13th. I don't know. I'm firing on all cylinders right now. I've had 3 straight days of kicking my butt in the gym. I woke up feeling like someone beat me with a hammer, like up in this region, like this general region. Do you guys ever just feel like you've been carrying 100 pounds in each hand for like a couple of months and then just like your neck? That's where I'm at right now. But it feels, for some reason, it feels good. I feel like I'm feeling strong. Today's show is about jumping overboard. You're going to want to feel strong if you jump overboard. If you jump ship, you may have to swim home. If you do it at a convenient and advantageous time, you'll do it when you're close to the land. That's a smart way to do this. It reminds me that when I was younger, totally different lifetime, before I was married, before I went to the military, before my life made any sense. I had a friend. His name was Marvin, and that was his last name. And Marvin had a boat, and he was a wild person, and we would go take his center console, no, whatever you call it, no cabin, deep hull V boat. It was like a 30-something foot boat, 32 foot boat. We take it down to the Gulf, down to Port Aransas, which is one of the places you can leave and go out into the Gulf. And then we would go as far as we could till we got over the edge of the continental shelf, which is about 50 miles. And that's where you could get into the couple hundred feet of water. Otherwise, it was just like 40 or 50 feet of water, and you could see the bottom from the boat. We would go as far out as we could. And the boat had a round trip range of about 100 miles. Best case scenario. And we would go 50 miles out, which meant every single time that we went out there, there was a decent chance that we were not going to make it back. We would put a fuel bladder on top of the bimini top. If you guys have ever seen these, like it's a chrome sort of structure that stands over the top. It's like a shade for the captain to stand on and drive the boat. And we would put a fuel bladder sitting on top of that, and we would run a line down and we'd put it into the tank, and we would try to get fuel from the fuel bladder into the tank so that we could make it home. And I always thought we were going to get stuck out in the middle of the ocean. I was pretty sure that was going to happen. And so every single time that I came on, I rolled on with like kind of a waterproof bag. And he'd be like, "What's in the bag?" And I was like, "Don't worry about it, dude. Like, don't worry about that." What was in the bag was a mask, a snorkel, and some fins so that I could fin my little butt home in case we got stuck out there in the ocean. And I was just going to leave him, and then I would go tell some other people, you know, "Hey, there's a dude out there. He makes bad decisions. He's stuck in the ocean, and you should go help him." Apparently, that's the scenario. Having never been stuck out at sea for 200 plus days, that is the scenario for the sailors that are on the USS Abe Lincoln. That's terrifying. Additionally, I want to kind of talk about the metaphor of jumping ship, because the White House press secretary, Karoline Leavitt, has either decided to or has been asked to resign at the end of the month. And so this is her last couple weeks as press secretary, and everybody's acting like it's awesome. And it's so great. She's going to go home and be with her kids. It is, if she's being honest. There's a decent chance she's not. I think that some people recognize that there's a problem and they want to be not associated with losing. This is actually not a new phenomenon. This is something that was brought up in the Trump first administration, and we can actually look kind of more broadly at Donald Trump compared to, let's call it, presidents of the modern era. And the weirdest thing about the modern era is, let's say it starts at about, 2000 or in the 90s. We can actually talk about whether or not Donald Trump has a problem with hiring, which is something I've sort of identified for quite a while. So we're going to get into all those things as well. We've got some good news on the gun front. You don't have to be a gun buyer, but today your options may be broader if you want to buy something from the folks over at Silencer Shop, or if you want to buy something from Palmetto State Armory, if you are in a place where you can go do that manually. So that sounds pretty cool. So we'll do that. We'll do a win. It's not a Trump administration win. It's really a win in the war of attrition against the National Firearms Act of 1934, something that Republicans didn't have the balls to actually go out there and codify. So they made the gun rights folks fight it all the way through, and the people that are trying to sell firearms fought it, and they won. And it was a victory that basically is going to be uncontested, but it's not something that the government rolled over or that our Republican, GOP folks managed to actually go out there and codify into law. This is a court victory. So that's actually not something you get to take credit for if you're in the White House, in my opinion. You guys can decide on your own. We'll get into all that in just a second here. We're going to be talking kind of on the theme of water, I suppose. So let's talk about water for a second. Check out covepure.com/KYLE. If you guys are drinking water that doesn't taste like salt water, I guess if it tastes like salt water, that's a good way to do it too. But if it tastes like things like chlorine, a lot of people know that there is in fact chlorine in their tap water. Maybe you swim in it and you're used to tasting it in the pool. Close your mouth. I'm trying to teach my 3-year-old that right now. You can smell it. You shrug it off. You drink it anyway because you're told that's what keeps the water safe. That's what keeps all the junk out of it. What they've told you about chlorine, most of us don't recognize what happens after the chlorine is in the water and what it does when it interacts with things inside the filtration process. Chlorine itself is not the biggest problem, although it's not awesome. Chlorine levels in your water are regulated, but what's not regulated is the way they interact with naturally occurring organic matter that's in the processing and the filtration mechanisms. Particles from your rivers and your soil and plant matter and so on can all interact with these things, and they can often create things called THMs. The government calls them THMs, probable human carcinogens. They've been linked to disruption in gut. They've been linked to cancer. And what you'll find out is that your pitchers that you buy at the store that are cheap are not going to actually do this. So you can get the improvement of the taste of chlorine, but it's not going to actually filter the stuff out. If you want to filter it out, you need something more powerful. Check out Cove Pure, their clear wave reverse osmosis technology. It's certified to remove 99.9% of contaminants. And that's not just chlorine and THMs. It also includes fluoride and PFAs and pharmaceuticals, and other junk. That's not water. Cove Pure just leaves the water part of it. Guys, the thing I like most about my Cove Pure, it's actually the best thing, is that unlike the drip filters, you don't actually have to wait forever. On the longest timeline from empty to full, I think we did a time lapse and it's about 5 minutes. If I fill up my drip filter because someone failed to fill up the drip filter in my house, it can take an hour, sometimes longer. So we've got both options. It's nice to be able to push a button and get water on demand when you're ready to, and the water doesn't taste like, in my case, broccoli water. I'll show you guys the video that we did for Cove Pure maybe next week, if you guys haven't seen it already, but it's sitting out there on Instagram, and it filters out everything, including when you dump an entire bottle of red number 5 into the filtration reservoir. Pretty awesome machine, very useful. Check them out. You're going to get $250 off right now using my name. It's not our name, I guess. Covepure, COVEPURE.com/KYLE. Link in the show description. Check them out if you have not done so already. If your water doesn't taste awesome, if you don't get excited about drinking just water, if you need something in it, an additive or something, check out Cove Pure. I don't think you'll be disappointed. All right, we're going to talk a bunch about water and jumping ship and falling into it and swimming around with sharks. Let's go right now. Yeah. All right, should we start with good news? We don't ever have a ton of good news. I got some bad news, but I got some good news. So let's do good news. I feel like it. I'm feeling fairly positive about this situation. In fact, I'm feeling so good about it. I'm actually going to go down to the silencer shop store today, the storefront. And I was thinking about waiting. I don't really have any need for it, but I've been thinking about buying a suppressor for a shotgun for a while. And I think I'm going to do so. I think I'm going to check out a new shotgun suppressor for my, Beretta 1301 Mod 2. I'm kind of a gun guy. I don't shoot a ton of shotguns. Maybe because they're not suppressed. Maybe because I just don't like how loud they are. So we're going to give that a shot. Let's go to, let me see if I can find this here. The first non-National Firearms Act of 1934 suppressor was sold last night, less than a mile from my house, to Brandon Herrera. It's a pretty big deal for those of us that are in the gun world. If you don't know what this works like, if you wanted to buy a short-barreled rifle, a short-barreled pistol, a short-barreled shotgun, if you wanted to buy a suppressor or a machine gun, anything that's regulated under the National Firearms Act of 1934, since 1934, the government goes through this ridiculous process where they have to give you a tax stamp for the the pleasure of owning your own property. And the beginning of this year, under the big, beautiful bill, it's one of the few sort of concessions they gave to gun owners, was that they were going to reduce the cost of that tax stamp, which was $200 in 1934. It was roughly the price of a Thompson submachine gun. So they tried to double the price of the Thompson, which was already very expensive. And they basically made it out of reach of the regular person. Because they locked it in at $200, that $200 has become worth less and less and less. To the point where it's just a hassle now. What they also did not take away was the government's desire to regulate this thing and maintain a registry on it. And so this lawsuit that's been pending, I guess, since January, is essentially arguing that if you have a $0 tax stamp, and by the way, I've got a couple of $0 tax stamps sitting on my desk outside, they're charging you nothing for a tax stamp. And the only thing that we can say is that the purpose of the tax stamp is to justify the registration. This was always an end around the Second Amendment, folks. It was known as an end around the Second Amendment. When it was passed, the argument went up in front of in front of the Supreme Court. And when they did it, the Supreme Court came back and said, look, you can keep a list of people who have a tax stamp to verify that they have the tax stamp because it's required by law. But you cannot just have a registry for the sake of the registry. So the tax stamp justifies the registration. What happens when the registration is zero? When there's no money involved in it. And so the tax stamp is essentially just a rubber stamp and it's free. That argument has been argued in North Texas, in the Northern District of Texas. There was a successful judgment that came down in favor of a bunch of different gun rights organizations. That's going to be Firearms Policy Coalition. It's going to be Gun Owners of America. And then a couple of different people that were selling them. PSA, Palmetto State Armory is one of them. Silencer Shop is one of the other ones. There's probably some other guys that are all involved in this lawsuit. And the end result was common sense prevailed in a very rare moment, I would say. It prevailed and said, if there's no money changing hands, then you can no longer justify having the registry. There's a Supreme Court case that actually goes on this. I came out and said it right afterwards. There's going to be a break point for the Trump administration in the DOJ and more specifically for the ATF. The ATF is going to have to decide, are we going to continue doing business as usual, fighting against gun owners, trying to say that some tube made of metal, which has no ability to fire a projectile, aim a projectile, it has nothing to do with the projectile at all. Are we going to still regulate that and call it a quote unquote firearm? Unfortunately, under federal law, it is still a firearm. So the metal tube, which is basically a pipe with a couple of little lines in it that are called baffles and a hole that goes through the middle that's concentric and allows you to quiet down something that is still very loud. That's considered a firearm under federal law. But at least now you can buy it with a 4473, which is just a regular background check, instead of having to go through this wait period. Whenever I buy a suppressor, and I've got maybe 20 suppressors, I guess, it takes anywhere from a month to a month and a half right now under the new regime. Previously, it would take as much as a year and a half, sometimes 2 years to get these damn things out. So we would call it being in the ATF jail. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because this is being touted, and even the guys at GOA, they're smart enough to know, hey, thanks, Donald Trump, this wouldn't be happening without you. That's true, but it's not like Trump came out there and really did the thing that he needed to do, which was lean on his party and say, why don't you pass the ability to remove this thing from the National Firearms Act altogether? We're now having the courts do the work because Republicans are cowards. That's frustrating. But a win is a win when it comes down to, it's kind of like a push is a win when you go to the casino. If you didn't lose your money on the table, then that's a win. That's how bad the odds are against you all the time. So this same deal. Here they are, selling the first suppressors. Again, this happened just down the street from me, so I'll go see this store in a few minutes when we wrap up here today. That'll be probably something I do right after the program.
These are the first two silencers without registration in over 90 years.
Tonight, Gun Owners of America and Silencer Shop are celebrating with the first legal transfer of an unregistered suppressor from a gun shop. First time in over 90 years. This is an exciting night.
What we're doing here today is frankly incredible. This is just another step in the right direction, showing that it's not enough to just play defensive all the time. Those of us in the gun industry and the gun community are used to playing defense for our natural, God-given, constitutionally guaranteed rights.
It's just unreal, I've got to be a part of the fight for a long time, and watching Silencer Shop and Silencer Co. and B&T and Gun Owners of America get to this point is it's just I'm on cloud nine all day, and so I am incredibly grateful to be here.
You know, I think we need to take a stand on being 100% no compromise when it comes to defense. I think we need to accept every win we can. This isn't a 100% win, but we are getting there. Very exciting. I'm very thankful for the GOA and all they've done. President Trump, thank you for making this possible.
Now we're playing offense. And it's thanks to folks like GOA that we're able to do this and make this come together. And I'm super excited to be a part of being the tip of the spear for what will likely be Second Amendment history. Thank you again to Silencer Shop, Gun Owners of America, Congressman Andrew Clyde, and President Donald Trump for helping make this happen. We couldn't have done it without you.
I'm Congressman Andrew Clyde from Georgia's 9th District, and I wrote the legislation that allowed this beautiful day to happen. Literally the greatest Second Amendment win in the history of our country is what I believe.
President Trump did a yeoman's job leading from the White House, really pushing this bill across the finish line and making sure that the DOJ was not going to appeal this decision. Finally, hats off to the hundreds of thousands and millions of gun owners, members, and activists. You did a fantastic job voicing your opinion, shutting down Congress, shutting down the phone lines, so much so that the congressmen were calling for the GOA fix on the NFA bill, and that's what we got. So Silencer Shop, thanks to them for hosting this here. This is a great historic day. We are reclaiming Second Amendment rights for our children and grandchildren. Thank you all for watching and being a part of this.
It's a win. It's definitely a win. But if you guys don't know anything about suppressors, I'm going to show you some things. This is from the U.S. Patent Office. This is one of the original diagrams. This is from, 1924? A silencer for guns. So for those people that get really upset and they're like, oh, it's actually called a suppressor. It's not called a silencer. Okay, well, the patent drawings say silencer. So just be aware. That's why that word has been in effect for a long time. It's just a muffler. It's a muffler for something that's still really loud, to the point where most rifle suppressors, you still have to wear ears. And I'm telling you all this stuff because, yeah, this is a nuanced argument. This is how people who are really deep in the weeds on a particular issue, let's say you're a Second Amendment type of person, I am. If there was one thing that I could talk about all day long, if you guys ever listen to our call-in show, which is going to be tonight at 8 p.m., you want to get me going? You want to drop a quarter into this machine? Drop a quarter in talking about firearms. The different cartridges, I find them fascinating. The machines themselves, I love it. Better designs, people who are innovating, people who are building stuff that hasn't been done before. I very much am interested in this. But these are the original drawings. You'll notice that this is what this is actually like a revolver style rifle, which is kind of funny. This is the actual silencer that you guys are seeing on the screen. It's a tube with a couple of lines in it. And all they do is disrupt the sound so it's not so damn loud on your ears. The biggest application in my life for suppressors has been teaching children how to shoot, teaching women how to shoot, and teaching, it's not very nice, but weak men, like soft, gentle men that are scared of loud noises, how to shoot. And it's really effective. I'll take a classic handgun that would otherwise maybe freak them out. You take the boom away from it. You take the report of the weapon, and suddenly it's not so daunting. And you should always do those outdoors. And then people can go, oh, okay, well, I'm just trying to operate a machine that moves a little bit in my hand instead of being startled all the time every time it goes off. And so you can take children, you can normalize them around things, teach them about safety. Okay? It's a really important tool. And the reason why I spent money on suppressors in the first place is because I told my wife I wanted to teach our kids to be safe around firearms. It should be there. In fact, if you invented a gun today, it would have a suppressor on it. They wouldn't allow you to create something that makes a noise that loud. It'd be an OSHA issue if it was in the workplace. They'd make you wear ear pro and a bunch of other stuff. But if there's a way to mitigate the sound, then you would do it. It has no ability, by the way, to make firearms go undetected. In fact, if I had to pick a choice of getting into a gunfight with a guy with a suppressor and a pistol down his waist, like a lot of gangsters will carry their guns, and someone who didn't, give me the guy with the suppressor every day. It's going to add a second to his draw. He's going to be drawing the thing out like the Joker in the original Batman. You know, he pulls that revolver and it just keeps coming out. And you're like, oh my God, how long is this gun? It doesn't make anything more deadly or dangerous. It's not for assassins, despite what the Luigi Maggiano case would teach you. people who make their own often make something that doesn't work reliably. Did you notice what those guys said in the video? They had to fight into it. They thanked Donald Trump because you have to do a land acknowledgement. But what we didn't hear was Congress acted and did the right thing. They reduced something from $200 to $0, and then they still enforced a registry, and they had to fight it in the courts. And it took from the time they passed the big, beautiful bill, which was a year ago, the time that the $0 stamp went into effect, which was January 1st of this year, till August 13th at midnight when they could actually make this thing happen. And the only reason is because it went through a federal judge who said this is now unconstitutional, and they decided to not challenge it. So it was simply a win by attrition from Gun Owners of America, Firearms Policy Coalition, the other gun rights organizations, and some of these retailers. It reminds me that this administration continues to make the people who voted for something fight for the thing that they said they were going to get. And they have to do it in unconventional ways. If you forgot about that, here is the friend of the Trump administration, the person who is theoretically prosecuting the Brian Cole Jr. case, has not left, although she was apparently on rocky ground earlier, and is apparently a high-heeled gun owner, whatever the hell that is. This is how I know that the people that think like I do are not running the show. This is Jeanine Pirro. One of the cringiest things that she went out and said when she was defending that you have to show up with the right papers. And this is actually going to play into some of the things when you say fatally wrong things that matter to the Trump administration, that's when you get yourself into trouble. When you say things that are clearly nasty to the base, like you should have the right papers if you want to bring a gun to Washington, D.C. at the same time as Donald Trump is arguing on behalf of national concealed carry, that wasn't a big deal. The thing that Karoline Leavitt said recently that might have been the worst is that she told Gen Z, people who are facing a historically bad economy, pick yourself up by your boob straps and go marry a 60-year-old millionaire if you want to be successful. That might have been the fatal move for her, to be fair. Or she sees the writings on the wall. Reminder of Jeanine Pirro, you can say gross things to the base and nobody cares. Donald Trump continues to do it unless you actually step on Donald Trump's feelings. Here we go.
I am a proud supporter of the Second Amendment. I have guns myself, long guns, handguns, and I'm a proud high-heeled gun owner. In fact, I even keynoted an NRA convention. However, you need to be responsible, and every responsible gun owner that I know makes sure that they understand the laws, where they are going, and understand whatever registration requirements there might be.
Okay. What kind of American are you?
Look, she keynoted an NRA convention. Do you remember when we played a clip for you maybe 2-3 weeks ago, and it was Donald Trump at a rally, and he was like, "I'm going to do some free polling right here. Who wants national concealed carry?" And he's like, "Usually they charge you $300,000 for these polls, but I got a free poll." And I told you, you know how I know it's not going to happen? Because if they wanted to do that, they would have done it already. Because Donald Trump doesn't understand what this is about. In the same way that Jeanine Pirro told you, make sure your papers are in order if you want to carry a gun. They're all in on, sort of marginalizing the Second Amendment, acting like it's not that important. And when you back places like the NRA, which has historically been 100% behind a bunch of the bad gun legislation, they were behind executive orders. They were like, Donald Trump is our guy. Yeah, he wants to ban bump stocks. Bump stocks. There's no place for bump stocks in a polite society. The answer is shall not infringe. Shall. That means that you mustn't infringe. It is not permitted for you to infringe. And so anyway, all these people take half measures. You even saw that the big win was that they dropped the cost down to $0, but there was still a government registry. And that only went away because of litigious action on behalf of people that actually believe in what's going on there. And they're willing to take partial wins. That's the way you have to do it. But you can't get me excited about a partial win. And you can't get me excited about saying, oh, well, our government is doing the right thing as long as we force them to. And kudos to the judge, by the way, for actually coming up with the right answer. Because that's not always that common. Again, it's in the Fifth Circuit, so Fifth Circuit for the win. That's where you go and you fight the government and actually get some positive progress towards the things that people were expecting. If they were serious about this stuff, they would just be like, yeah, we'd like to repeal the NFA. We're going to get rid of it. It's unconstitutional because the Second Amendment exists, because we're serious about it. Or you could say, I'm a proud high-heeled gun owner while wearing a $4,500 blazer that gets ruined or something like that. That was another one of the scandals from Jeanine Pirro. Anyway, there's certain things you can say and there's some things you can't. She was able to say that. Nobody cared. Except me. Except those of you who are gun people. You're like, yeah, that's gross. When you listen to her say it, you're like, ugh, yuck. Kind of like the president says, ugh, yuck stuff on a regular basis. When I read it, I go, who the hell is counseling this guy? Has he completely gone off the reservation? Is nobody monitoring his phone? It's time to take Grandpa's phone away. I'm going to read you his tweet from yesterday morning about the Strait of Hormuz, only because it's nuts. And then we're going to get into sort of like the messaging problem. And this has to do with jumping ship, I suppose. The U.S. has total control over the Strait of Hormuz. All caps. I think we'll keep it. That's the sound of my hand, my palm hitting my head. Our naval blockade, which is, by the way, capitalized for no particular reason, naval and blockade, is being called, comma, by everyone, comma, a wall of steel, all caps. It's only being called a wall of steel, by the way, by Donald Trump. We played that for you yesterday. And there's nothing Iran can do about it. They have no navy. They have no air force. Their remaining soldiers are unpaid, and the IRGC is decimated and fleeing, and their quote-unquote leadership, capital L, is uncertain at best. That was all one sentence. They have no navy. They have no air force. Their soldiers are unpaid. Their leadership and their command is decimated and fleeing, and yet we're still losing this. And we're losing it at least on the financial end. More of that in a second. They have no money. Capital N, capital M, no money. Again, one day somebody should study the mental acuity of people that do this, and maybe as a marker for intellectual decline. That seems like something that should be done. Because I don't remember that Donald Trump always did this, but Donald Trump, since he got into politics, has been old. He was what, almost 70 at the time, and now he's 80. They have no money, capital N, capital M, and their country is quote unquote shot. Like, this is all euphemisms. So it's a wall of steel. I love that he calls it shot. Their country is shot. That's something like my dad would say. Yeah, like he's like, hey, what's going on? It's shot. The engine's shot. This bill is shot. Refrigerator shot. You don't have to put it in quotes. We know what it means. They're not literally shot. All they have is fake news in all caps and 300% inflation, all caps, and getting worse. That is not the flex that it sounds like, because it sounds like we're getting fake news from the White House, and we probably have 300% inflation in my lifetime. Things cost 300, 400% more than they did when we were younger. Not great, man. Iran is all talk and no action. This is, my buddy Viva calls this confession through projection. Every statement is a confession. All talk and no action. That hits hard again. The bully of the Middle East no longer. Dude, just awful. And then he ends with this, which I don't know who told him this is funny or why it's clever or why the president of the United States should tweet this. Praise be to Allah. I don't know anybody that says that in a clever way, a funny way, and certainly not after this sort of bloviating garbage. It's really bad. It really is. So let's see what the news of the day says. Oh, oil prices are largely unchanged on Wednesday. They were essentially flat after rising sharply this week, with the Strait of Hormuz effectively shut down as fighting continues in Iran. The price of a barrel of Brent crude, the international standard, rose by 0.19% to 89.08 early Wednesday. The benchmark for U.S. crude ticked up 0.4%, 83.53. U.S. gasoline also edged upwards 2 cents higher overnight. The national average is now $4.04. Okay. That's 16 cents higher than at this point last month. So we're up 16 cents in 30 days, but we're up from closer to $2 for a lot of places in this country only a few months ago. President Trump said he would seek compensation from Iran for the conflict after Tehran said it would seek payments from the United States before it opens the strait, which a fifth of the U.S. oil or the global oil supply runs through. 20% of the world's oil is running through that place. Meanwhile, the Iranian-backed Houthi rebels attacked a ship and they killed some people. The renewed hostilities between the United States and Iran suggests a long-term reduction in shipping through the Strait of Hormuz is the most likely scenario, says Ben May, who is the director of global macro research for Oxford Economics. Roger. And in other news in the same area, Turkey says that they are now planning joint military exercises with Saudi Arabia and Pakistan under a new defense pact. So Trump has managed to convince these people that they needed to create a new defense alliance, which is called the MAGA Joint Defense Agreement. Turkey's defense ministry said Thursday that joint military operations and exercises are planned with Saudi Arabia and Pakistan as part of their newly formed MAGA Joint Defense Agreement, stressing the pact is defensive in nature and does not identify any country as an adversary. That's smart. Speaking this week at a weekly briefing, the Turkish defense minister said what? They've signed an agreement. It's between Turkey, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia. They signed it on August the 7th. It aims to strengthen and institutionalize defense and security cooperation between these three countries. I imagine others will join as well. The MAGA agreement is not an alternative or a competitive structure to NATO, but it is considered a complementary mechanism to which the international security architecture is contributing to regional stability and security. Remember one of the things that we were going to do? There it is. We were going to prevent World War III. We were going to restore peace in Europe and then also the Middle East, which would mean that these things are not necessary. And then we were going to build an Iron Dome missile defense over the United States made in America. That was one of the promises. It was in the top 10. It was number 8. We were also going to defend the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the fundamental freedoms, including speech, freedom of religion, and the right to keep and bear arms. They kind of half-assed that too. When I listen to people that do the MAGA defense and they're like, well, he's fighting Congress. It's like, well, he's fighting his own party? Almost like I'm not making the argument that Donald Trump is the worst thing that's ever happened. I'm making the argument that Republicans don't solve the problems they claim they would. And maybe that's a little bit nuanced, but I think it's very obvious by the evidence that we get every day. How else would you articulate that? And so here you go. We're going to get into a quick graphic here. I'm going to talk to you about shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, which Trump said is not only open, but we're going to keep it. We're going to keep it in all caps. We're thinking about keeping it and hold on to it. Okay, I guess that's a thing. You could say that. It just turns out that the numbers don't actually align with any of the things he said. So when you start saying, well, some of the things you said are false, how many other things are false? Are you completely just full of shit? And when I compare them against your promises and they seem like that's true, it's disappointing. I don't like it. I don't like being lied to by our White House. I wish that we had somebody in leadership that knew that the buck stops with the guy at the top. Instead, what we always get are excuses, and they hate everyone else, but not me. They love me. We'll get into that in 1 second here. If you're watching on Rumble or YouTube, give us a like, subscribe to the channels if you haven't done so already. We appreciate that. I think the same people keep subscribing and getting unsubscribed. We have like 7 on, 7 off every day or so. It's really funny to watch it. Sometimes it'll pop up at the end of the show, and by the end of the day, it's back down again. It's like it's hovering at the same number. Does feel like suppression is what it is. Speaking of suppression, if you want to suppress your volume right now because you're going to have an advertisement played on the audio platforms, do so if you must. You will hear an ad from the folks at Spotify that will pop up on Apple, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Podchaser. There's some other ones out there. If you're listening to any of those places, if you haven't checked out KyleSeraphinShow.com, that's where you can get our Spotify show with audio and video. You may hear an ad from them right here. And there you have it. So I try to give you guys the heads up on that. We do the best we can do here. Let's do the shipping traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. This is actually one of the funnier headlines I've seen from NBC News. I like it a lot. It just says graphic, tracking ship traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. And then I actually pulled this video and I was going to show it to you. And I realized even though this article is dated, this is dated in April. Interesting. Wait, why is this article dated so far back? Oh, it's updated today. That's why. Or yesterday. Okay. I was looking at it. I was like, I know these numbers are correct because it's recent. Here's the last 4 weeks of shipping traffic going through middle of July. Should put it on here. Middle of July going through to the 9th of August. So they don't have current. It was like to the start of this week, the end of last week. All right. Since August 9th, there you go. They've got one thing has made it through. It's been dry bulk. They have container, tanker, and dry bulk shipping. I assume that's like stuff piled on the top of a deck. I don't know what stuff constitutes dry bulk, but maybe you guys can look it up for me. General cargo, 0. Tankers, 0. Containers, 0. Other, 0. Dry bulk, 1. And then here's your numbers for the last 4 weeks. We can also do since January 1st, since the beginning of the year. This is actually a shocking graphic. Are you ready? This is one that you want the visual for. Boom. Whoa. Now, January 1st, you've got shipping between, that looks like about 75 as low as 50 on any given week is what this, I think this is what it's doing. Is it doing dailies? No, it's doing dailies. So dailies, you have things going through anywhere from 75 to 150 during normal traffic in the middle of the winter. Okay. Some of these are as low as 50. There's a couple of spikes in here. They're not all that common, but they basically live around 75-ish. I would say if you were going to average this out just by eyeballing it, 75 or so transports a day. And a huge chunk of them, you'll notice, are orange. The orange is symbolizing tankers. So you've got north of 25 tankers on any given day, making up the biggest bulk of it. And then the second biggest is container ships. And then you have kind of intermittent dry bulk. One of you guys in the chat said that's my nickname. Is that dry bulk coming to the gym? Guys, get out of the way. You're going to want to leave all the 100-pound dumbbells on the rack. Dry bulk's on his way in. Yeah. So anyway, so there we go. So we got, this is the thing. And then there's a couple of like containers coming through or, others. But essentially, right when February ends, we get a dramatic drop off to the point where it looks like it's down in the single digits per day. From 75 to almost none. And we had a little bit of an influx at the end of, after March. So what are we at? April here? Mid-April, there was kind of that little hope going into Easter, if memory serves. I'm trying to remember like the context of this, but you had a little bump up. I can just scroll down a little bit and show you these dates. Then it kind of got a little bit better, Okay, kind of intermittent, off and on, all the way through May. Then we had the announcement in June, spiked up to close to the normal levels, low normal, 50 for a couple of days. Then that kinetic ceasefire kicked off, and it just went back down to half of that within a few days, down to 25-ish. These probably average out to 25, and then went right back down to the beginning of the war numbers where it's single digits on any given day. This is a truly damning graph. I'll make sure this is in the links under the Rumble show and on the YouTube show. And I'll try to cut this. I might even just cut this over and put it on kyleseraphin.com, because what an awful visual representation of what success does or does not look like. And again, what's the president saying? I think we'll keep it. We have total control of the Strait of Hormuz. If that is the case, then it's a total failure as the United States holds on to it. And we did the strategic oil reserves the other day, did we not? Didn't we have a graph of that? Still have that. There it is. We had a bump up as Secretary Wright was starting to rebuild it. And then we've had this dramatic drop off to the point where now at the lowest point that we've been since I've been alive. We're getting down to late 1970s, early 1980s numbers. Less than 50% capable in the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. And it took 6 months to bleed that all out. And that was only to try to alleviate the cost on the domestic market, which means that the prices you're getting at the tank right now are being buffered by the president bleeding out our strategic reserve, which is the same thing Biden did. I mean, you can see the graph. It's not very hard to see it. If you look at the graph right there, as Biden was trying to maintain a grip on the country, as he was trying to go out there and run his failed campaign where he ended up withdrawing, they were doing everything they could to try to basically buy off, buffered the bad pricing. But the United States is in total control over the Strait of Hormuz, and we'll keep it. By the way, the Iranians say, nope, that's not true. Iran launched strikes on ships, demanded tolls from vessels that were transiting the crucial waterway in the wake of the U.S.-Israeli attack February 28th. And you'll remember, if you paid attention to this show, in February, you could go to donaldjtrump.com/platform. And this is one of the reasons why I continue to hammer this thing home. Anytime our politicians tell us that they don't want to be held accountable for something, I'm very interested in what that is. So I'm going to go back and hearken to it. And this graphic, This Agenda 47, the 20 Promises to the American People, which was the platform that not only Donald Trump ran on, but the GOP ran on, it disappeared from their website, from donaldjtrump.com/agenda47 and /platform, to the point where, and I'll point this out again, I think I can get it on, I'm just doing this on the fly here, Agenda 47 Wikipedia. There we go. Almost like I've done this before. This is the Wikipedia page. Not to be confused with Project 2025, by the way, we've heard nothing about that. This was the manifesto, the campaign manifesto that would be the details, policies that would be implemented on election as the 47th president. It's a collection of formal policy plans of Donald Trump. He made small videos about each one of these points. And the craziest part was, if you scroll to the bottom here and you go to the external links, the only external link they had, where it came from, this is Wikipedia's page, so, left-leaning, but still relevant. External link, the source for the Agenda 47 page is as follows. You can't see it on the screen, it's below. But it's donaldjtrump.com/agenda47. You could also get there by going /platform. And it disappeared from the internet. They pulled it down, and it's only available in the Internet Archives now, the day that we started bombing with Israel in this new Iran conflict. And the reason why I speculate that is the case is because one of the major points here was the eighth point, that we were not going to have a war in the Middle East. And it's like, well, sorry, I forgot about that part. At some point, that stuff gets toxic. Axios ran a story the other day, maybe last week, and they talked about the quicksand the Trump administration is locked in. The quicksand that they're locked in is of their own design. And I don't think he's up to his knees. I think he's up to his chest in it. I think he's about as high up as his pants go, which is usually just an inch or two below his nipples. You guys have seen these pictures of Donald Trump golfing, and he looks like Tweedledee or Tweedle. Somebody needs to tell the man. It's like, dude, stop pulling your pants up so high. That's awkward for everybody. Nobody wants to see that. Not a good look. To the point where I started asking, when are people going to jump ship? I wanted to know what the story was with the ship jumping. Is it going to happen? We have literal ship jumping that's going on, allegedly, in the Middle East. But at some point, are there going to be people abandoning ship? So I ran to the AI tools. I'm cheated on this one a little bit, and I went through. I didn't remember off the top of my head. I'm going to go through you the list of people that worked for Donald Trump starting January 20 of 25 and no longer do. And we're going to do them mostly in order. Now, I asked for the highest profile people. There's a couple in here that are lower profile, and we'll get them as well, as best we can. The first casualty of the Trump administration was Mike Waltz. That was in May of 2025. He was the national security advisor. And then he got moved on. There was a signal gate. You remember that? Where national security information was being discussed, sensitive things, maybe not even that necessarily a big deal. Could have been an op. Who knows what the story was? We end up just moving on. And what do? They cut bait with him and moved him into another position. He was nominated as the United States ambassador to the UN. And Marco Rubio took on his first set of interim duties. This was before he was running Spirit Airlines, Marco Rubio. All right. Now, this is cabinet level type stuff or just below cabinet level. These are Senate confirmed positions. Kristi Noem, DHS secretary, fired by Trump March 5th, 2026. She continued on to the end of March of this year. All kinds of criticisms, replaced by Senator Markwayne Mullin, who was already confirmed very, very quickly. How interesting when somebody gets confirmed quickly by the Senate. Remember, the enemy will always tell you where they are strong, where you are weak. When they're totally okay with somebody coming in as quick as someone like Markwayne Mullin, that should be your warning sign that that's not going to be the radical agenda you were hoping that was going to get done. How about Pam Bondi? Pam Bondi was ousted in April. She had about 14 months on the job, which is longer than Daniel Bongino, 292. All right. So April 2nd, 2026, she's out. This is over Epstein files, which I think was probably the death of this administration. Unfortunately, we can always see where something was deadly. We can always find cause of death when we look back retroactively. It's not obvious at the moment per se, but a lot of us knew this was an issue, that there was a radical transition that took place from June into July of 2025. That's when the energy went away. That's when I think, because you only get so much time on the clock. This is not new, by the way. in your term, every 4-year term is broken up with a midterm election. And if you have the House and the Senate, theoretically, they're going to carry out your agenda, then that's how much time you have to decide whether or not you get to keep that majority. So if Donald Trump was still going gangbusters, we were doing Doge. If you were seeing people like typing, LFG, let's go, because we're seeing massive deportation operations. Yeah, some lady who tried to run over some ICE agents gets shot through the windshield. Too bad, lady who gets shot through the windshield. Don't run over ICE agents. Don't feel empowered. In fact, run away from them. You should be scared. You shouldn't be empowered to drive up and yell at them with a bullhorn. There's another story on this one, too. If you saw major arrests of so-called deep state actors, one of the funniest things that I saw this morning, one of my buddies sent me some rage bait. Buddy in the FBI. He's like, look at this fat loser. The former boss that I had at the FBI, John Nance, who we've already played you the clips on it, but Daniel Bongino roasted him endlessly on his radio show and his podcast, calling him a clown. I'll play that in a minute if you guys want. And he went out there, and now he's doing puff pieces for FBI Director Kash Patel. And he gave this interview about his interview with Patel. Do you guys want to know how gay this is? If you get a chance to interview somebody and then people want to interview you about your interview, you're a sad fat man who just needs to retire. And Nance goes out and he was like, listen, I'm not going to say the name because he's such a gentleman. He says that, do you think the guy who went into the office that wrote the book on government gangsters changed, or do you think that guy determined that the people who he was supporting previously were not who they said they were? Well, there's thousands of hours of me being exactly who I am. I'm the same guy. If you meet me in real life, if you meet me on the podcast, if you talk to me on the call-in show, I'm the same guy. Turns out, people who meet me all the time, I'm like, yeah. I'm not as tall as I look. I look taller, to be fair. I look taller on the podcast. So I got that going for me here. Do we think Kash Patel changed, or do we think that they found out who I really was? That they found out who Steve Friend really was? That they found out who Garrett O'Boyle really was? Do you know why we know this is bullshit? Because Steve and Garrett and me and Marcus, there was almost no daylight between us. The people who got reinstated and the people who didn't get reinstated, we held the same opinions about what was wrong. Some of them got put back in because they kept their mouth shut, which is fine. I got no beef with the guys that did. Some of us laid on the barbed wire so those guys could get a living back and be able to go after and support their family. The best part is, I know this little segment will be clipped by the male clown FBI agent that runs some of these hate accounts on us. They're like it's a fringe little niche market. It's smaller than my audience for sure, which is not a huge audience. It's really funny. And they're so worried. The reason you know that this show, as small as it is, and it is not a big show, like we're in the top 150 for politics whenever you see the rankings, which is not nothing. I mean, I appreciate all of the people that watch, but we're not like out there moving millions of people's opinions. But we're talking to the right people that know that what we're saying is important. Because when Judicial Watch goes out there and does a filing and says, hey, how about all those records from Anthony Fauci's phone that you guys are getting into? And they file their FOIA and then they have to go into federal court to sue. They use a Kyle Seraphin tweet so they can just go, nyeh, and just poke the little belly button of the chubby guy that's running the FBI right now. Because they know that it gets to him. It's very funny. We actually originally thought that maybe we would change. If you guys have seen the Suspendables logo, it's an upside down FBI badge, and there's an eagle at the bottom. When I handed it to Daniel Bongino, 292, at the police state trailer, or the police state premiere rather, at Mar-a-Lago. It's like one of the few times I saw him in person. It's the only time I saw him in person outside of doing the police state taping we did with him, and then the podcast I did. I think I've met Dan 3 times. And anyway, when I handed it to him, I said, eagle down. That's the way it's meant to be worn, eagle down. I never saw him wear the pin, by the way. Not once. Says something, doesn't it? But before we put the eagle on the badge, we flirted with the idea of making it a mosquito. Because it was never going to be that like this sort of messaging was the strongest or the biggest or the most powerful bird. It was always going to be like a mosquito at a barbecue. You can't find it. You can just hear it after it bites your ear. Just a pain in your ass. That's just saying things that need to be said. Not that I love mosquitoes, but that was the analogy, that we were just going to pester the shit out of people like Chris Ray, now Kash Patel. Doesn't matter who you are. If you're doing the things you're not supposed to be doing, we're not going to be able to stop you. We know that. We're not going to be able to, damage you in any meaningful way. We're just going to piss you off because what we're saying is accurate and we're small. But, mosquitoes are a real pain in the ass. They will make you stay inside. They will make you make a decision. You're like, hey, do you want to go outside and hang out by the pool? And you're like, it's mosquito time right now. Nope. No. And you can slap a mosquito. You can kill mosquito. You can kill a mosquito, but you can't stop mosquitoes. Mosquitoes are ubiquitous. They're everywhere. They're kind of like coyotes. You can shoot a coyote, but the song dogs of North America, they continue to proliferate. They're everywhere. You can't stop them. They're not always pulling down pets, but they're everywhere. That's kind of the metaphor. I had a friend who once referred to me and my sort of war of attrition against the FBI as being a coyote. He said, not a coyote, you are coyotes, plural. You can smack down certain things, but we're going to keep out there. We're going to keep just existing. So, Mike Waltz, we'll go back to the list here. And this is a story, by the way, from the Washington Post from 2019, October 2019. When should Republicans jump ship? Well, it turns out some of them have a choice and some of them don't. Mike Waltz, National Security Advisor. Kristi Noem, Secretary of Homeland Security. Pam Bondi, Attorney General. Lori Chavez DeRemer, Secretary of Labor. April 20th, 2026. Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence, Cabinet rank. May 2026. And now Karoline Leavitt, White House spokesperson. August 12th of 2026. She's going to finish out the month. Somewhat lower, but also relevant, Joe Kent resigned in March of 26 over the Iran war. FDA Commissioner Marty McCary, May of 2026. Internal friction. Navy Secretary John Phelan, ousted in April. Border Patrol Chief Michael Banks. Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons. Elon Musk, Department of Government Efficiency. And Daniel Bongino 292. That's a lot of pretty high profile people who have been removed from that space. This story from the Washington Post dates back to quite a while ago. It's a story asking, when should the Republicans jump off? And there you have it. It's the Trump ship. It's like a cruise ship, and there's just people bailing off into life rafts. You can see the date on this, October 31st of 2019. That was about 3/4 of the way through his first term. We're not even half the way through the second term, and people have jumped ship. Now, one of the things that I was really curious about, because it's not in my obvious recollection how this stuff works out. The question is it common to have this much turnover? Am I just paying attention to it more because I had a lot of expectations about this administration? Maybe you guys are wondering the same thing. It turns out this is not normal. This is not how other administrations operate. There are core 15 department heads in the presidential line of succession. I did this little run through AI, and I said, can you please compare Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, Joe Biden against Donald Trump when it comes to stability in these positions? And we didn't even mention Greg Vivino, who retired as well. Brookings and other trackers focus on consistency. As of mid-2026, about 19 months into the Trump second term, had seen about 20% of these positions turn over, with at least 3 cabinet-level secretaries, and that's going to be Homeland Security, Attorney General, and Labor, as well as the Director of National Intelligence is a cabinet rank position. So that's 4 people that have turned over from the Trump administration. It said, how about context? Because this is what I wanted to know. Biden's record of stability. Only 1 or 2 cabinet-level secretaries departed in the first 3 years. Obama, low early turnout. Roughly a handful of cabinet changes in the first term, a few by year 3. Second term figures were broader. People had bigger roles, blah, blah, blah. Second term, people start finding their way into the next job. George W. Bush, also pretty low early on, 1 to 2 at the cabinet level in the first years of his first term. And Clinton was moderate with a small number of departures. Trump's first term itself was an outlier. This is the analysis piece of it. So take it for what it's worth. Higher cabinet churn than expected. The second term has been more stable, but it's accelerating since the spring of 2026. Are people jumping off the ship? There were 2.5 times more departures in the first 4 years of Donald Trump's first term. It was 6 times more than the average for comparable periods against Bush, Obama, and Biden. It's not normal. You want to know the other funny thing? This is that you're seeing on the screen right now, a picture of Karoline Leavitt, who's about to leave. And it's her goodbye, whatever post, the long one. Kind of the idea that if you are explaining, then you're losing, I think. Serving as the White House press secretary over the past year and a half has been the honor and the adventure of my lifetime. I really, really hate when someone tells you that it's been an honor of their lifetime. Unless it's about their spouse, I just think it's gross. I'm incredibly grateful to President Trump for granting me so many extraordinary opportunities, working in the West Wing, spending countless hours in the White House when I should have been hanging out with my children, flying all over the world and meeting foreign leaders instead of taking care of my geriatric husband, and traveling around our beautiful country and meeting Americans from all walks of life. Blah, 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 blah. Being a mother and welcoming a new baby. Yeah, I just don't believe it. This is a real easy thing. It's like, I'm a mother. It's the most important thing in my life. I'm going to go take care of my babies. Somebody else can do this job. Women should be taking care of their children when they're young, and I'm in the blessed position to be wealthy enough to not have to worry about money. So I'm not going to work this job. Which makes me think that she probably didn't have an opportunity to actually stick around one way or another. Here's the best part of it. It doesn't say it on the computer version, which is what we're looking at here, of the post. But on the internet version, on the app version on my phone, it shows us that the post was created with AI. These are not real pictures of Karoline Leavitt and the president. She created them. They're fake. Kind of like that post. Is that not the weirdest thing to find out? I don't know which one is real, if they're both fake, or one of them's real and one of them's fake. You used AI to create pictures of yourself with the president of the United States who you work for and theoretically deal with every day. Here's what Donald Trump had to say about this. By the way, he's less schizophrenic with his weirdo capitalization, but he still has weird capitalizations. A wonderful White House press secretary and one of my most trusted aides. Guys, his words. One of my most trusted aides, Karoline Leavitt, will be departing from her role at the end of the month so she can spend more time with her beautiful young children and family, a decision I totally understand and respect. One of your most trusted aides is a 28-year-old woman who's married to a rich guy and basically has no other special skills or competencies. And she told an entire generation of people to pull themselves up by their boob straps. Guys. Now, some of you guys are saying in the chat already, I started putting this out yesterday, and I hope it goes everywhere. I hope it goes everywhere. I want to see Laura Loomer get her shot. Okay? I'm on record. The next White House press secretary should be Laura Loomer. Let's see what a man can do in this job. We've seen women do it for a couple of times in a row. Let's go back to like a Sean Spicer type thing. Let's put a dude in there that can dominate. And then I also want to see Laura Loomer fired in the first week in a live stream, and I want to live stream the results of it. It'll be must-see TV. It will absolutely be the watch party of the century if they pre-announce that they might be doing something wild with Laura Loomer in the first week. If she doesn't make it a week, and in the middle of a press conference, Donald Trump comes out and goes, Apprentice style, you're fired. That will be the most entertaining thing. That will be as exciting to me as finding out that you can buy suppressors at midnight down the street from me. Can we do this? Can they give us something? If we're not going to do serious stuff, if we're going to do reform but with the same people, if we're going to do like a lot of promises and then not deliver it, can we at least have some fun versions of the fake and gay? Tell me that would not be entertaining. I'm tuning in for that. Maybe you are too. We started off here. For those of you that are just listening, what you're missing is there's the frog, and he's standing up at the podium, and he's explaining that you are here. It is the overlap of fake and gay, Okay. Fake is, I'm so glad that I had an opportunity to work in this place and I'm leaving on my own accord. Gay is, we are now naming an Air Force base after Lindsey Graham, the fatal throbbing war boner. And the overlap is where we are. And the possibility is that this is actually a fatal circumstance. Everything was fake and gay. We now may be getting the Oregon Trail message. You have died from unprecedented levels of fake and gay. At some point in time, the fake and gay is lethal. Can we at least have fun with it? Can somebody put Laura into the job that she's born to do? Can we have just an absolute catastrophic meltdown? And maybe she could sell, I don't know, like human edible dog food while she's doing some White House stuff. If they're selling advanced access to Donald Trump's thing, can we also just do entertainment for the White House press secretary briefings? Because I think that'd be very entertaining to me. I know I'm a narrow audience. I'm an audience of one guy. But still, I think there's some energy for this. You guys tell me if you're on. Put a comment below if you are so inclined. Put a comment. You can put it on Rumble. You can put a comment on YouTube. You can put a comment on Spotify. You can hit me up at Kyle Seraphin and leave us a message over on X. I had the weirdest message from yesterday's show. A guy sent me a picture of his calves and told me, don't make fun of TRT because I was able to bench more when I did TRT, hormone replacement for men. Dude, don't send me pictures of your calf. I mean, I guess do whatever the hell you want. Do what you want. But I'm not looking for pictures of your calf, and I'm not impressed. Also, if you want to hit the easy button on getting stronger by taking supplements or taking hormones, if there's a medical reason for it, sure, I guess. I don't know. Like, I'm not impressed, and I'm stronger than you. I'm stronger than you because I'm stronger than you up here. You guys may hear an ad on the audio platforms right now. I'll leave a break for the folks over at Spotify. I actually believe that, by the way. I actually believe that I'm harder and stronger than you guys. If you are just getting, like, if you're getting a shot and you're like, no, I got a shot. Now I'm able to do, like, hard stuff. Cool, dude. You can also stay up for days if you do cocaine. That's not impressive. All right, let's do the NBC story here. White House press secretary Karoline Leavitt to step down. She's 28. She's the youngest person to serve in the role. She recently returned from maternity leave following the birth of her second child because she actually prioritized the job. Right? Who criticized her? This guy. Does it have any effect on my life, really? No. I'm just saying, stop pretending to me that you are conservative when in reality, you're just an opportunist. You're just a person who's 28 years old. You got an opportunity, potentially because of who your husband was, whatever. It's the same thing as doing the Nepo in-law routine. And I don't respect it. I don't think it's respectable. And I don't like some woman going out and wearing a cross, projecting something, and then lying on behalf of the president of the United States. It's a fundamentally dishonest, like, not impressive move. And you had a baby and you could afford to stay home and you chose to rush back to work. White House press secretary is going to be leaving the administration at the end of the month. As we said, she served her role since the beginning of the second term of Trump. She's going to spend more time with her beautiful young children and family. I get the impression, this is my impression, I don't know if it's true, that one of two things, or maybe both things are happening. Number one, maybe she was asked to leave. It's a real possibility because she stepped in it and she can't get out of it because people are not going to forget that. That's possible. Number two, she's seeing the ship sink and all rats know when to jump off the sinking ship because they can feel the water level rise. And she's like, I will never be employable again in this thing, and I want to maintain my capabilities in this space. I don't know why she needs the money, but sure, that's possible. And I'm sure being around your kids would be good. I just don't know that that's the motivation because I already saw her rush to get back to work. Not telling the truth is not a particularly attractive quality. Karoline will now be one of my top outside advisors and an influential voice within the party. I expect her to have a Fox News show pretty shortly. That's kind of the way these things work, is it not? We will work to defy history, he said. History, with a capital H. Conclusively, win the midterms. Yeah, I'm guessing that she's seen what that polling looks like. What do you guys think? There's like a real chance that Ms. Leavitt saw the internal polling and realized it wasn't going to fly. She's been a real leader in the White House as a 28-year-old mom of 2 with a new baby. She was pregnant for half of the first bit. She's been a real leader. She's done a phenomenal job fighting for justice, capital J, no evidence. Liberty, capital L, no particular evidence. Freedom, capital F. Since 2018, she's been a fighter. It was 6 years ago. She was 22. Dude, go F yourself on this one. Including our historic re-election campaign of 2024. She's been one of the best White House press secretaries in the history of the White House. Cue all the people that need and desperately want the approval of Donald Trump to talk about how she was the best ever. I saw Roger Stone say it. Roger Stone, who's 10,000 years old, was like, I've seen a lot. She's probably the best. Really? She's the best? What made her the best? Nothing. Thank you, Karoline. Job well done. We're super excited about you going into the rest of the world. She's going to go take care of her kids, but she's going to be an outside advisor to the president, apparently. Okay, so that's the case. That's the same kind of energy as this. This is the 26-year-old I brought up the other day. I dislike this so much. Not because I think Michael Alfonso is a bad person. I don't know at all. He's probably an okay guy. I just know that 18 months ago, he was asking whether or not he should become an FBI agent on the phone with me as I drove through northern Idaho and into Montana. I know that we had that conversation 18 months ago. When you're out there touting that you're not going to apologize for working your ass off since you were 14 years old, welcome to everybody who's been in America forever. How many of you were working your asses off at 14? That's the standard for normal people. Work your ass off. You're like, I worked really hard during the summers. So did everybody else. Nobody cares. What do you know at 26 years old? Historically, what do 28-year-old moms of 2 know beyond anybody else? My experience is nothing. Having been a 22, a 26, and a 28-year-old. I barely knew anything at 28. I was the least informed about anything at 28 years old. I entered the military when I was 27, and it was the happiest time of my life to not know anything about the news. I tuned out from knowing all the stuff that was happening all the day. I used to read like 12 different news sources every morning. I would sit there. I was on All Africa. I was on all these weird like Chinese, translated American sites because I wanted to see what the whole world was saying about all this stuff. I had this very, very cosmopolitan view of the world at that age, 26, 27. I still didn't understand anything, and then I was like, dude, F all this stuff. I just want to go lift weights with my friends, run hard outside, get my ass kicked, and like sleep in a crappy bunk. And I did. 26 years old. This kid might as well be like me, like, I've been mowing lawns and delivering newspapers since I was 14. And now that I'm 18, I would like to be your senator for America because I'm a hard worker for all few summers, 3 summers that I did it. That's how this sounds to me. It doesn't help when the Secretary of Transportation is sitting right next to you, who was also a congressman. Who I like. I think he's a nice guy. Like in my limited experience with him. Nepotism. It's gross. It doesn't matter who does it. By the way, if this was a Democrat, I would hate it just as much. If this was Debbie Dingell, we've done that on this show. We've talked about how gross it is that you hand down your seat to somebody. I don't care if you're a Republican. I don't care if you're a libertarian. I don't care if you're a freaking communist. It doesn't matter to me. Democrat, Republican, grossness is gross. If you have principles. But that's only a problem if you have them. If you don't, then you can just do stuff like this.
Critics will say the reason that you seem to be a shoo-in for this race is because of the man next to you, Secretary Duffy, and also his relationship with the president and his endorsement. Michael, I'll start with your reaction to that, and then Secretary Duffy, I'll ask you the same.
Look, I'm not going to apologize for marrying my middle school sweetheart. I grew up in this district my whole life. I've been working full-time, almost full-time in the summer since I was 14 years old. And I will tell you what, in this race, I'm going to talk about the things that really matter to the voters. I'm the hardest working one. I put 60,000 miles on my car in 9 months.
Long-haul truck drivers, can you tell me what that means? 60,000 miles on your car? Number one, I don't know if that's true or not. He's the hardest working guy. He's 26. If you're not the hardest working guy at 26, then you're a retard. Full stop. That's the end. That's the end of that sentence. You need to be working all the time when you're in your 20s. That's what you do. He just said, I worked full time every summer. Literally nobody cares. You're 26. It's your time to learn things, not to be in charge of things. And again, nobody asked you to apologize for marrying someone that you love. I think that's awesome. I think it's incredible that people are getting married younger than I did. I think that's great. Now shut the F up and do work. And not that work. I'm seeing the chat say that 60,000 miles is not that much. This is a child telling you, I work really hard and my daddy's been super proud of me. He told me I was the hardest worker. And that's how it comes across. And people who have met him in person have already reached out to me. Some of you guys have sent me messages about this. This is not a flex. This is pathetic. And it's pathetic no matter who does it, no matter what party they're in.
And I'm going to represent the people of the 7th the same way I have worked on the campaign trail, as the hardest working one in the race.
I know what people want because I'm 26. It's like, dude, you don't have any children. You have minimal life experience. You worked in construction for a few minutes, and then you worked for Daniel Bongino as a podcast producer for a year. That's not enough. Sorry. What do you know? Nothing. You don't know anything. But we're in the era where we're putting Anna Paulina Lunas in. We're getting bartenders that are AOC. They go out there and they're successful. Like, when I tell you that I don't think we're going to vote our way out of it, we're not putting serious people in that have a serious experience to go out there and reform the actual problems. They just want to be part of it. And when you're going out there and claiming that you know what the problems are and you're a child, how many times have you, like, by the time I was 26, I think I had been homeless for the first time. Actually homeless. Like, I had nowhere to live. I had a car that I was staying in. And I had no money. I'd like, that was a real life experience. I had no business making decisions for anybody else at that time. By the time I was 27, I had finished working for a year and a half on tens of millions of dollars worth of accounting. I had no business making anybody's decisions at a national level. None. And I pretty much guarantee you statistically I'm smarter than that kid. And that would have been the audacity to say that I'm going to work super hard and therefore I should be in Congress. What the actual hell? It's not a man position to say, I've done all these hard things. I worked for a few days. Tell me what the hardest thing you've ever done was. That's what I want to know. That's what I would like. That's how you tell me. What's the hardest thing you've ever done? It's like, I decided to lose my career when I had 3 children and a wife who depended on me, and we didn't know anyone where we lived because somebody was going to come in and force something into my body and my children's body, and I wanted to look down my children in the future in 20 years and at least be able to stand on my own 2 feet and say, I made a decision that was hard for our family because I saw a bigger consequence in what we were doing. How about that? How about we have people that have some life experience? That's all. Not, I worked really hard during the summer in construction. Everybody worked really hard in the summer when they were in college, if they weren't a total turd. For all of you that are arguing about age and the younger people that were in charge of this country back then, yeah, when men became men at 14 and had to take over the affairs of their household, there's a reason why the average person wasn't supposed to vote in America, by the way. We have way too many people in the electorate. Way too many people. That's how we ended up at the intersection of fake and gay. We gave everybody a vote. It's my ongoing supposition that if you don't pay a net positive in taxes, like why are you deciding what we're doing with the money? If you're not in the middle 50% or above, and that's not against anybody who's like, I've been a person who would not have been able to vote under my own ideas. And it's like, that's fine. Yeah. If I'm not making decisions that make me have skin in the game, why would I have any decisions on do it? Let's have the people who have the money in the game. We used to have this concept of noblesse oblige, the nobles who were obligated. And the reason they were obligated is because they were responsible for all the stuff. They didn't work construction for a couple of summers and then say, I should be able to vote as one of the 535 people who decide on things in the entire country. The absurdity of that. The people that were in their 20s when this country were founded, they were running plantations full of people or factories or family businesses. Like they did stuff. They'd served in wars. This kid has driven his car a bunch. Yeah, and some of you guys are pointing out life expectancy has changed pretty dramatically. It turns out, yeah, when 25 or 35 are like middle age, you know. It's just not the same world. So let's recognize it. And if that doesn't make you feel grossed out, then you don't have to be grossed out. I'm just telling you, I'm grossed out by it. I think it's gross. I think it's weird. This is my show. So sometimes I get to say my opinion. And then you guys get to disagree with me in the chat. That's my favorite part about it. We're not supposed to agree on everything. So let me know why you want a 26-year-old making decisions for you. Please put a comment below. Tell me how old you are and how many 26-year-olds you would make in charge of decisions on your behalf. Not related to you, by the way. That's not allowed. Not your child. Not like a medical proxy who's your blood relative. I want to know, what 26-year-olds do you want to put in charge just by listening to them speak on a campaign stump tour? And is 60,000 miles enough miles for you to be like, yeah, this guy can drive a bunch of miles? What a silly thing. Speaking of like some long-term movements, how about this one? This is an absolutely atrocious story, and I can't get over it. I don't know what the guys did back in the day. I don't know how long the journeys were, but I think people have historically gone crazy at sea. I think that's a normal thing. This is The Guardian. By the way, no U.S. news sources are reporting this. And the amusing part that I saw was that the Secretary of War / Defense said that this is fake news. It doesn't seem like fake news. USS Abraham Lincoln sailors tried to jump overboard amid extended deployment. Coming in from reports from people that are on the boat. They're probably not allowed to speak, so we're getting it like second and third hand. Hard to say whether this is true, but it's coming up from a lot of different sources. Aircraft carrier crews in their 9th month at sea, they spent a record 250 days consecutively without making landfall. That sounds like a really long time. Sounds like an awful long time. So these guys are getting ready to jump ship too. Physically, there was the metaphorical jumping of ship. Look like this. There's the metaphor. It's like a clipper ship or something. There's the metaphorical jumping of ship. There's the AI view of Karoline Leavitt. She's got some guns. I aspire to have biceps like that. Those might be just mom biceps. It's okay. And then there's the literal jumping of ship, which is what we're talking about in the case of the USS Abraham Lincoln. Right? Military families, members of Congress, sounding the alarm at what seems to be an intensifying mental health crisis aboard the USS Abe Lincoln. 5,000 sailors and Marine endure a record-breaking deployment at sea that's tied to the Iran war. There's two leading specialist military papers. One's called the Navy Times. The other one's called Stars and Stripes. They reported there have been multiple attempts by sailors to jump overboard as poor conditions and mental stress reaches the limit and a breaking point on the Lincoln. The crew is in its 9th month at sea. 250 days consecutively without making land. It's a record for an aircraft carrier in modern times. That's what I wanted to know. How far back do the modern times go? If you guys actually have this information, it wasn't easily available to me, but by all means. Here's a gentleman who claims to be friends with a friend or a friend of a family member. We're going to hear this one report, and then I'm going to show you a mainstream news report as well. This sounds rough. I mean, it does, like being in the same spot. And I can imagine that in a general population of 5,000 people hanging out on a boat or a ship for 9 months, that's pretty rough. And things could get weird. You could find a couple people that break.
You guys, there's a mental health crisis happening aboard the USS Lincoln in the Middle East that no one is talking about, and mainly because the Navy's pretty much quashing it. You will read online about food shortages, supply shortages, poor morale among crew members. That's because they've been at sea continuously for 250 days. They've been deployed a total of 271 days, 250 without a port of call. That's unheard of. Normally, they would go to port every 3 to 6 weeks. They have not been to port in 38 weeks. Keep in mind, there are 52 weeks in a year. And yes, the showers are moldy. They're eating basically like a gruel kind of slop at this point. There's no deodorant. There's no toothpaste. My nephew has a friend on board there, and I was basically hearing updates last week when I was in the States in real time. They're not talking about the mental health crisis. 6 people have tried to jump off that ship. The most recent was last Monday. You know, when you have not touched land in 38 weeks, in over 200 days, things start to happen to you mentally. You know, combine that with exhaustion and deadly mistakes start to happen. So, you know, this is how the Department of War, this is how Donald Trump treats our servicemen and women, whose lives are already being put in harm's way for a bullshit war of aggression that was supposed to be over in a matter of weeks. We are further putting their lives at risk out of sheer ineptitude and neglect. It defies logic, it defies reason, and it defies basic fucking humanity.
Kind of hard to argue with that. I guess that's fake news. Allegedly. If you believe in the press here. I think we've got the mainstream covering it as well.
Tonight, a shocking new report that multiple sailors aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln have tried to jump overboard amid poor conditions and mental stress on the ship. This is according to new reporting from the Military Times, which spoke to the wife of one of those sailors, who says she's spoken to her husband only a handful of times since he tried to jump. He is now on a medical hold. The Military Times is also reporting severe food shortages on board and that sailors are running out of just basic needs: toothpaste, deodorant, soap. This crew has been at sea for 9 months amid Trump's war in Iran. That includes 250 consecutive days without setting foot on land. 250 consecutive days. That is a record. Out front now, Natalie Olivero. She is the Military Times journalist who broke the story, and she is also a Navy veteran. Natalie, I appreciate your time. I mean, the details you have in this story are really stunning. I mean, my jaw drops. You know, we're talking about the USS Abraham Lincoln, and you're talking about things that I think people struggle to understand are happening in the U.S. military. You've spoken directly with some of these families, and you're reporting on incidents involving sailors apparently trying to jump overboard. You spoke to the wife of one of them, I know, and her husband served in the Navy for more than a dozen years, 13 years. So what have you learned?
Thanks for having me, Erin, and for covering this story. Speaking with Miss Saloma, she is extremely worried and concerned about how her husband is actually doing. And until she can be in front of him and see him with her own eyes, she's not really going to be able to answer that question. And facing the stresses that every military spouse faces when theirs is deployed, as being a solo parent at home with 3 little kids. So not being able to have answers or direction is really challenging right now for her especially.
So, you know, look, these incidents are very disturbing. I mean, what would drive someone to be at a point where they would be willing to do that, obviously, is distressing to consider. But the families of sailors aboard the Lincoln are telling you about incidents like this. They're also telling you about some of these other truly stunning details, that the sailors are often hungry because there isn't enough food, that basic supplies, toothpaste, deodorant, aren't easy to get. Now, back in April, you know, and this has been going on a long time, we talk about this ship 250 days in a row without setting foot on land, a record. So this has been going on a long time. In April, Secretary Hegseth, dismissed reports about inadequate food. He said it was fake news. So what's the reaction to from the families that you're speaking to? They don't get to talk to their loved ones on board that ship that often. You know, what's their reaction when the defense secretary calls this all fake news?
Confusion, hurt, lack of understanding. They're constantly seeking some kind of reassurance or information. There's a lot of conflicting reports, a lot of different information, especially on social media within different groups and small community pages. Those are the pages where organic conversations and relationships exist.
Those are the pages where organic conversations and relationships exist, whatever the heck that means. Yeah, I get it, guys. I get it. Also, you guys are pointing out she might be related to Kash Patel. Possible. Can't rule it out. I don't know what the duck face thing is either. I don't understand this generation of people that want to like cut their face up and make weird faces and inject things into them. That's a thing. Ongoing. Let's just do they talk about the modern era, because this is what I was trying to figure out here. The longest deployment at sea for a U.S. naval aircraft carrier in history was logged by the USS Midway. 332 days consecutive underway, and that was during the Vietnam War. That's probably not a record you want to go after. That holds the historic all-time record. And then I also wanted to find out, what about modern operational stretches? That's what they're talking about here. So since the Vietnam War, which is a pretty generational thing, we've gotten into this being the longest. The previous was in 2020, which was the Eisenhower during COVID restrictions. It was at sea for 206 days, but it was under a quarantine. And then the Teddy Roosevelt, 102, 160 days consecutive. 100 extra days at sea could be a long time. That was during the opening shots, September 11th, Enduring Freedom, etc. The Nimitz also in 2020, 140 days unstopped pandemic stuff. And then 2011, 100 plus consecutive days was the Carl Vinson, which was a high ops tempo moment. 250 days at sea is nothing to be sniffing about. 250 days stuck on a boat. Their supplies, I'm sure, are running low. People are saying things about moldy. If you guys haven't seen the videos of it, the toilet's backing up and like things failing on it, I'm sure they're working on it. But like these guys they're in the grind. And they're in the grind despite the fact that we voted for no new wars. Maybe you guys didn't vote for that, but that was part of the deal that I saw. Maybe a generation without it. I think young people who saw Donald Trump pushing the idea of peace after 25 years of being in conflicts, it would have been nice for a little break on that. We actually have it on the list. Not just peace, but also a time to rebuild domestic missile defenses. Almost all of the agenda that's listed on the agenda 47, the 20 promises, they're almost all domestic. That's the wild part about this. And so anything that focuses the American attention overseas, on a ship or otherwise, it's not what was promised. Watching the knee-jerk reaction of some Republicans to fight against this, and there are no more apologists for fighting Iran than Ben Shapiro, and it seems like Patrick Bet-Davis is super into it as well. They love it. So they think that there may be a quote-unquote Groyper problem because Nick Fuentes says things that they don't like. The craziest thing that I've ever heard is that you will not listen to someone because you don't like the way that their opinion makes you feel. Does the information hold up or not? Like, I don't like listening to women who have duck faces and pouty mouths and get injections in their face. But if the information they're sharing sounds accurate based on a wide swath of other people reporting it, it's like, okay, fine. Then you're the I'm not going to attack the messenger. I want to know what the message is. And what we also see is this weird purity test thing where if you don't say things in the right way or you haven't been sufficiently nice enough, then you can't be part of the conversation. And that's what we're actually hearing right now, too. So here's PBD, large podcast, Ben Shapiro, still large audience, even though he said a bunch of nonsense about COVID. And there you have it. You have to be sufficiently MAGA enough to be able to have an opinion at the MAGA table. That's actually the opposite of what they ran on to. You guys remember? They had freaking OnlyFans stars standing up on the stage of the GOP convention. I don't know who you're appealing to with that, but it's not this guy. It's not people like me either. In the same way that recruiting a 26-year-old worked construction for a couple of summers is not like I would recruit you as an intern. I would pay you to do a menial entry-level job and see what your work ethic turns out to be. I don't want you to be a congressman. Call me crazy. Anyway, you have to be sufficiently MAGA. Here we go.
Communities are changing faster than people want.
Whoops, that's not the one I wanted to do. That's David Pollack. He is sufficiently MAGA, by the way. Here's the Ben Shapiro bit.
GOP staffers say the party has a Groyper problem. So Groyper problem, we're talking about Fuentes. So yeah, polling shows that the overwhelming majority of young conservatives reject anti-Semitic views, though their support for Israel has dropped significantly from their prior generations. They also are more skeptical of military intervention than forebears. The oldest members of the Gen Z cohort were toddlers on 9/11, grew up in an era of multi-decade, multi-trillion-dollar wars, and found themselves unable to afford homes as they reached adulthood. Many come of their mistrust of GOP orthodoxy, honestly.
Listen to what he just said. The mistrust of the GOP is honestly come by. Why? Because there was a promise that was not made, or that was made and wasn't delivered on. That's real. They grew up in a time when war was the standard. They were toddlers or they were newborns when 9/11 happened. The number of people that don't actually even know what all went down on that day or what the change was and have no recollection of a time before that. Yeah. That fatigue is real. And then stepping into a job market and into a housing market as a young person where you can't afford to buy a house unless your family members are wealthy and they happen to have like a lot of resources. That's a real debilitating moment. And by the way, those of us who got out of college right before the financial collapse, we saw the same thing happen in 2006, 7, and 8, where it was basically unaffordable to buy a house for young people. So it's a couple of generations that have seen this thing. This is a natural instinct to go like, hey, well, what happened to that American dream?
So do you think there is a Groyper problem on the right?
I mean, obviously, Nick has built himself a nice-sized audience. And I think that a lot of these sort of, edgy, half comedy, half not comedy stuff that he's doing has traffic. I mean,
Ben Shapiro just did a straw man and he knows it. Do you think that there's a Groyper problem? Do they have an honest thing? And what he says is he's got a big audience and he says things that are edgy. So he's going to just go here and do a critique about some of the things he says rather than actually deal with the substance of that problem, why people are actually attracted to the message. This stuff is what make me know that we're not voting our way out of this stuff. I'll call this fake. This falls into the fake category, not the gay category yet.
Transgressive politics is always attractive to young people.
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's Hassan Piker saying he loves Mao on the left, or whether it's Fuentes saying he loves Hitler on the right. Kind of violating the rules is always sexy to people.
Yeah.
And so it kind of bespeaks authenticity, or it bespeaks humor, or whatever it is. So yeah, no, I think that there's a legitimate issue with people who believe some of the things, and because at a certain point, and you
let's see if we can get to anti-Semitism. Do you think we can make this about Jews?
See this with the DSA left, the same way you're seeing it with the Groyper right. It's all joking until it's not joking, right? Like you joke about Hitler, you joke about Hitler, and at a certain point you're like, am I really joking about Hitler, or was he really kind of okay? Like, was he really kind of an OG, or was he not? Right? Like,
You think he's joking? You think he's joking? Or you think
I don't think that Fuentes is joking. I think that he likes to use humor as a cover for the fact that he is not joking. Actually, I think that his belief system is I'll grant him the courtesy of sincerity. I think he's sincere in his belief systems. I think he's wrong, but I think much of what he says is quite morally terrible. But I think that he comes by it honestly.
You work with him.
I did not. So
did he work? What was the relationship with you guys back in the days? Because I know he came on. I asked him the question.
So he has this whole like weird villain origin story that he's come up with regard to his rise in Daily Wire and all this. I'll be honest with you, I don't remember pretty much any of this because this was not important to me at any point in my life. So this is like the only thing I remember is that Cassie Dillon, now Cassie Akiva, was friends with Fuentes, I believe, and she texted.
There was one question. Is there a Groyper problem? Which is to say, do people have a right-leaning bias and they don't want to caucus with Republicans in young people because of major letdowns in promises? And they made this about a personality conflict and an origin story and some sort of like individual instead of talking about the ideas the individual wants to espouse. And they went to the stupidest things that he talks about, which are not the major problems. If you ever listen to a Nick Fuentes speech, like he's very bright. He's a good broadcaster. And when you hear the things he argues, you're like, okay. Yeah, people shock you by saying all kinds of funny things. Yesterday, I told you the WNBA should bring back throwing dildos. That might shock somebody. It's kind of funny to imagine dildos being thrown. I told my wife that this morning. She started cracking up. I was like, yeah, they stopped after some lady got hit in the face with like a silicon penis. She was like, oh. The vision of it, the visibility in your brain of imagining like some dudes like secretly like sneaking dildos in that they paid money for to like fling onto the court of a boring basketball game where women are playing basketball and nobody gives a shit. That's funny. It's also true. It also turns out that boosted ratings. Like everybody wanted to know who's throwing dildos. Now they're going to have dudes play. Dudes who are legitimate former professional basketball players. That's also interesting. The only way that the NBA or the WNBA is going to get people to watch is with gimmicks because they're not interesting in their own right. People use gimmicks all the time. Sometimes people have a really good argument, but the only way that you're going to hear it is by hearing it through comedy, through sarcasm, through satire. There are whole business models built on this. This is not like a crazy idea. So can you address the actual things that are being brought up? And PBD brought up issues. And what did you hear from the other side? You heard Ben Shapiro address it based on like a villain origin story and some personal conflict and things. And he was beneath me. Like, okay, I guess he was. There's not a serious conversation about the problems that are actually being introduced. And whether you like it or not, I think that people are recognizing it inside the Trump administration. It's people who are seeing the real polling, people who understand that what they're saying is historically unpopular, and people who do not want to be associated with the last person holding the bag when the music stops. Nobody wants to be the person with no seat. So better to leave now and go get yourself a Fox News job if you're the White House press secretary. Better go do that game than sit around and see what happens if you go down with the ship. There will be people who go down the ship and they think that's what loyalty is. You want to be loyal to an 80-year-old guy who's not going to be around very soon? Statistically, mathematically, not hard to predict. Like how many seasons away are we from Donald Trump being this guy? Who I'm pretty sure is dead. That's Mitch McConnell, if you can't see. That is a devastating photograph of the man in a suit, sitting upright in the middle of his thing. I don't want this guy in charge, and I don't want 26-year-old guys who did construction for 2 summers. I don't want either of them in charge. Call me crazy. I just want people in the power band of their life. You know, mid-30s to like mid-50s, late 50s. Get out when you're 60-something, early 60s. That just seems rational. When I look at people who are in charge of things, I don't want to see people that are grandparent age, and I don't want to see people that just were teenagers a few seconds ago. That doesn't sound crazy to me. You need to have a track record, but you shouldn't be too old to be bold. That seems very common sense. Maybe it's not. I don't know. All right. What I do see is that if you say the mouthing messaging as much as possible, if you will do the knob slobbery, then you can find yourself in a position. This is a meta-analysis for you real quick. And by the way, if you guys are listening on the audio platforms, punch this in real quick. You may hear an ad that I'll insert here. Leave a little space. KyleSeraphinShow.com. You can go to KyleSeraphin.com if you guys want to be part of our call-in show tonight. You want to disagree with me verbally. I would enjoy that. I enjoy people having opinions that are different than my own. Here's a kind of a meta-analysis on a thing we're going to play real quick. One of the major issues that has popped up has been whether or not we're going to have election security, right? We've apparently abandoned the idea that we're going to do deportations. But let's look at that as well. Let's look at the last two things. If you were to boil down, what were the major promises? What are the three no-fail missions that were given to the Trump administration? I think we've said it before. It was the border and deportation operation. That's one thing. Those were two numbers, but they're incredibly important. It was the solving of the financial issues with inflation, making America affordable again, was a major, major issue. And none of those things matter in the future if you don't lock up the election issues. The claim that we had an election problem in this country that has been unresolved and that we were just too big to rig in 2024 is absurd. Again, it's my ongoing contention that Donald Trump was the bleed-off valve for a violent pressure that was building up in this country. So I'm glad that we have him here as an alternative. By the way, I'm not arguing on behalf of Kamala or Biden or anything else, and I didn't then. You can look, I've been consistent on this thing. It's very easy. But it doesn't seem like he's been able to do the things that he wanted to do, or that he said he was going to do, whether he wanted to or not. I can't actually assess. I'm not in that position. But I have seen people bail off the ship acting like, well, if we're not going to do what I came in to do, I'm out. Joe Kent was one of them. I'm out. Pam Bondi's smart enough. I'm out. You guys wrecked my reputation. I'm probably done. I probably have no more political steam. I'm out. I'm gone. Daniel Bongino. I'd rather be a podcaster. I sure as hell can't fix the FBI. I actually didn't know what I was talking about. And now I have to go back and try to convince an audience that I did know what I was talking about. There is an audience for people that are willing to blindly tell you what you want to hear. And this guy I'm about to play you a clip from on OANN is one of those people. And I like him as a human being. He's a decent human being to talk to. Again, I find this all the time. I can dislike people's messaging and not say I want to see bad things happen to you. I don't want to see bad things happen. This is David Pollock. David came to me when he was he was paying for a radio show. He paid for airtime on a Florida radio station so that he could have a radio show. And he was a governmental attorney. He worked for one of the, I'm not 100% sure who he was working for, but he worked for as an attorney for the federal government. That's his background. He went from Florida to California to have a TV show that he basically manufactured. He created the want for it, and his brand is MAGA, 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 100% MAGA, put on Corey Mills, have a radio show so that I can ingratiate myself to the movement so that I can build myself into a future job in media. That's what I always thought I was going to be. I always wanted to be a media guy, so now I get to be a media guy. He's the successful version of John Nance, who always wanted to be a media guy but was stuck being an FBI agent. Okay? I'm going to show you a little clip from his show. And I saw it because I follow him on X still. I follow his posts. And he says, the United States needs to look at Europe and see the dangers of illegal immigration. Buddy, who is in charge right now? The solutions to illegal immigration, we already elected the people that said the right things about this. We already had the people in, and those people left. Lyons left the department. Bravino left the department. Kristi Noem, busy primping, taking pictures of herself, border Barbie, posing with rifles in weird ways, still was actually on message about what was important. And we got the next round in, which is status quo guys who are not a threat to the establishment, immediately confirmed in the Senate as DHS secretary. Listen to this guy giving you a warning. And then imagine that you are imagine me, okay? I make living decisions based on what firearms I can own, by what I think they will do to my children, by what sort of child protective services are existing in the state that I will be in and whether or not I'm going to have the ability to make decisions for my children. Imagine me getting an offer and then choosing voluntarily to take an offer somewhere in California. Can anybody picture that? I'll just alleviate you of that burden. Like there's not a job that you could get me to do to move to California. If they moved me to California as an FBI agent, I would have resigned. Hands down, no questions asked. That I wasn't going to California under any circumstances. I wasn't going to New York either. I already had decided if they assigned me to the New York field office in the FBI, I would have resigned and tried to figure out what to do with my life. So I had conditions that I would willing to work under. I will never work in a communist state, period, the end. It's a non-negotiable thing for me. Here's somebody who didn't have that same thing. Imagine going from Florida, where you can own firearms, even though some of the laws are stupid, where you have relative freedom, where you had a governor that was like trying to make sure that they were doing the right thing, and then voluntarily moving into California for a media job to be a conservative broadcaster. Conservative, air quotes.
Communities are changing faster than people want them to.
Oh,
you're
God.
racist if you say it, but doesn't the people get to decide what their governments get to do to their own countries?
Well, I think Europe gave up on letting the people have a say a long time ago. We've been consistently saying that none of us want this, and they don't seem to listen. But that video for me, just seeing all those dots coming in, it's crazy to see it like that. That really puts it into perspective. And I know a lot of Americans are getting quite sick of hearing about this European crisis. I think they think that it doesn't quite affect them. It's not the same thing. And
Right. It doesn't affect us because we elected Donald Trump. Remember, Donald Trump, what did he say he was going to do? He said he was going to do the things that mattered in this particular circumstance. These guys are making the same argument they made when Joe Biden was in. Are we just recycling that crap? I mean, and that's what I want to know. What is the audience? The America One News Network, OANN. What is the audience of OANN of people that are like, what I need to hear about is more about how Joe Biden did bad things and how Democrats will kill us? Ready?
Remind them that, yes, it might not be a huge issue here, particularly the Islamic people here. But I remember when it was only less than 1% of the population in England. You know, things change very, very quickly. So I wish I could go back in time and remind Americans that, you know, we could have stopped this thing maybe 10 years ago.
Here comes the major point. Let's hammer it home.
So now's the time. This is happening all over the world. And make no mistakes, if the Democrats get in, this is exactly what you're going to see happen in the United States.
If the Democrats get in, this is the boogeyman game. Guys, you need to vote harder or communism. You need to vote us or whatever's happening in Europe will happen. We already voted for those people. We already did that. That was the thing that happened. We're acting like 2024 was not an actual vote. And maybe it's because it's actually not going to have the effect that's required. Here's Donald Trump telling you that the midterms, it's not his fault. You think that they don't know that they're going to get obliterated? You think that Karoline Leavitt is leaving because midterms are going to be awesome and they're going to be totally vindicated? Here's the senator from Tennessee responding to Donald Trump's brilliance, too.
The president was asked about this by Punchbowl about whether or not he thinks Republicans will turn out if he's not on the ballot. Here's part of his answer.
The question is, will they vote? Because a lot of them are very angry at Republicans, to be honest with you. Why is that? I don't know. I mean, they're angry at Republicans, but they're not angry at me. That's an interesting thing. Why? They're not angry at me, but they are angry at Republicans.
Well, some Republicans say they're mad at them as lawmakers because the president has put targets on them for not getting some of these key things done on his agenda. Politico reported about a meeting this week. I know you don't talk about what happens in these meetings, but Senator Daines came out and he said this, that they had talked to pollsters and others in the meeting about when will President Trump start attacking Democrats instead of attacking Republicans. What about that, about this assessment that the president needs to go harder at his opponents than those of you who are trying to get things done?
Yeah, when is he going to be mean to the Democrats again? Can we pivot back to the thing that we're good at doing? Like, just because you have the majority in the House and the Senate and you have the White House and you have a Supreme Court that's favorable towards you, and why can't you attack the people who don't have the power? We like to do the scary thing. Let's talk about the scary communists. Let's talk about the leftists. Let's talk about the people that were trying to overrun the border if we don't get to continue on. Yeah, Donald Trump's a meanie for that. It's like Donald Trump is also losing. Like nobody's impressed with what he's done. He's trying to deflect the blame because Trump is doing the intersection of fake and gay.
Senate.
Well, I think the president has ample room to do this. The only two things the Democrats have accomplished since he came into office, since
what?
In the past year and a half, almost 2 years, the only two things they've accomplished are two historically long government shutdowns.
The only things that Democrats have accomplished since they were in the minority is two historically long government shutdowns. Guys, the answer to this story is that we have to keep the government open because Republicans are very, very interested in making sure that your tax dollars keep getting spent on government. Okay, don't worry about smaller government. Don't worry about reduction of government. Don't worry about the best thing that can happen for somebody who wants small government is a government shutdown. Don't worry about that. Okay, blame it on Democrats. That's the right answer.
In fact, that was on tap this week. That's why we worked so hard to make certain that we got a continuing resolution. It's called.
Guys, a continuing resolution is a win. Okay. That's what we did. We got a continuing resolution done because even though we promised since November of 2023 that we were going to have no continuing resolutions, we got a continuing resolution and we've redefined that to be victory.
But that we keep the government open beyond the election and into December. That was.
Everybody knows that Republicans just want government to be open. They want government to be open and functioning. They want to spend your money with government. That's what the Republican position is. If you thought that the Republicans were interested in small government conservatism and having less government, no. That's why we got rid of Elon Musk and Doge, okay? That's what we were not about. Obviously, you were mistaken about that. That's not what Donald Trump ran on, making the government smaller and more efficient and making America affordable. No. We ran on making sure we did it right.
Chuck Schumer's primary goal was to shut the government down to create more chaos. That seems to be the Democrat playbook, is let's create chaos and mayhem, and in so doing, somehow get their friends in the media to blame that on the Republicans. I think the task is on us now. We got a lot accomplished in terms of legislation that put our Attorney General in place, the Russian Sanctions Act that I mentioned just a moment ago, and again, extending the government, keeping it open. When we get back, though, we're going to have to do something on election integrity.
And when he says get back, he means that they're on recess because they took a break from doing their jobs, which he couldn't name anything that was successful, and other than getting in a new Attorney General because the old one got fired because he wasn't any good. This kind of playing off each other and immediately forgetting that there was like an actual position that was run on. It reminds me, this was on Fox News. So let's do another Fox News blonde lady. This woman, Mrs. Sean Hannity, is very mad at the evil Dr. Fauci. And she's very mad about the shots. You want to know why we live in the intersection of fake and gay? Because these people make a ton of money playing both sides, playing back and forth, and then like acting like they didn't say the thing they just said a few minutes ago.
It is extremely important for pregnant women and women planning to get pregnant to get vaccinated.
So all three of them are on this text. He's saying, I'm worried that it could cause miscarriage in the first trimester. And she writes back, especially after dose 2. Then a month later, was that soundbite that you just heard when he's saying no red flags, women can get pregnant, women planning to get pregnant, they need to get vaccinated. So he's saying one thing in the text to these other experts. Why didn't any of those other two experts speak out? Why didn't the CDC director or the Surgeon General say, Dr. Fauci, you told us something different in our text messages a month ago. Are we lying to the American people? What if a woman is pregnant right now and she takes that second dose and she has a miscarriage? Is that our fault? Because we didn't tell the public the truth? What if you had a miscarriage in 2021? Are you like wondering now, was it because of the vaccine? Dr. Fauci told me I was fine to take it. This is...
Bong! Fox News alert. Everything is fake and gay, and you are going to be dead from levels of fake and gay that are unprecedented. Bong! We knew this in 2021. Everybody knew this that wanted to know this. Ms. Airhead? Isn't that her name? Airhead, something like that. Earnhardt, Airhead. Bong! Fox News had a vaccine mandate at the network. Don't tell me you cared about it. If you did, you would have stood up against it, and you would have spoke out then. Bong! Fox News is full of shit, as usual. It's troubling. What do you do with this? We're not getting what we voted for because there's no energy. There's no instinct to actually do the things that we voted for. If you voted for the largest, the historic deportation operation, it's not happening because Donald Trump said, well, we don't have the energy for that and we can't do it. It doesn't really matter what you voted for. What we've figured out is that we know better than you. And we're in charge. That's why we have to keep the government open. This clip surfaced the other day from the Charlie Kirk speaking tour. This was done in 2025, before he was killed. He's talking to men who are saying that there will be no deportation operation, that America doesn't have it. And he recognizes it then too. You can't say that, it turns out. You can't say that they lied to us straight up. They promised us something and they're not going to deliver it. This should be telling. And then I'm going to show you the election thing. Okay? The three major pieces. Massive deportation, make America affordable again. Deportation would help that, and secure the elections. If you do those three things, the other 17 on this list of 20 is kind of irrelevant. We know you're not going to actually defend the Constitution. You want to do AI. You want to have Flock. You want to have Axon. You want to have Palantir. You want to have whatever else. You want to have Anthropic or whatever this crap is. This is how I know that we're not getting it. It's because Americans actually don't have the ability to stomach the difficulty. We have a country that's full of people that want to hit the easy button and they think it's just going to be fine. The claim is, well, you would collapse the economy. So what? So collapse the economy. We have to rebuild it. That has to happen every once in a while. Our economy is built up on things that we cannot survive with. So we have to do that. It's uncomfortable. It's the same as the guy that wants to take the TRT shot because he can't do the bench press that he wants to do, and he's not willing to put the 9 months into work up to get to it. Why don't I just get a shot? Why don't we just make it easy? Hey, bro, I can outlift you. Yeah, I can outrun you. I can outswim you. I can outwork you on everything. Why? Because I put in the work. I put in, it's not just like some little easy button shot where like suddenly I have the shot of ability to do something. I earn that ability. But that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to earn it. We don't have that instinct in America anymore. People want the lightest, fastest, softest version of it. You want kudos for working over the summer in construction? Screw you, dude. That's what everybody is supposed to do. You're supposed to go be a man and do hard things. You're supposed to have a job and then a part-time job afterwards because you're hustling, because you want to get ahead. That's not admirable. That's considered normal in the American mentality. The people who were successful always busted their ass. And they never asked like, hey, could I get like a cookie or like some praise? The only person that praises you who cares at all is your wife. That's it. The only person. And maybe your parents go like, nice job. It was hard when I was young too. There's a t-shirts. There's a mentality. It's called get back to work. Nobody cares. Seriously, nobody cares. When I lost my job, nobody cares. Did I think people should care? No, I didn't. I was like, that sucked. I don't like it. I'm going to work against it. Whatever that is, whatever that brought that to my level. But I don't think that you should like high five me or give me hugs. The money that we raised, when I went out and raised money, it was not for me, it turns out. We raised $600,000 for people who were not me with this platform on purpose. Because it was like, okay, they're doing some other part of the fight. You know, James O'Keefe offered to raise me a ton of money. Nope. Not it. Here's how I know. There's not any energy for the hard version of making it happen. Just grinding it out.
I'm white. I don't want white people doing the roofs because I got people complaining it's hot outside.
So why don't you educate me of what mass deportations would do to your industry?
There'd be no one to work on to build back. We've already seen it in Florida.
So then allow me to provocatively then have me tell you how I hear it. Are you telling me everyone in this room is hiring illegal labor?
Not everyone, but I know I have in the past.
Okay, so everyone is saying yes. So, and again, you guys can boo me off stage, and I want to respectfully have it. And if I'm wrong, come to the mic. So is everyone here in this room committing a felony?
Yes.
Okay, good to know. You have proven a very a depressing point that we are not a nation that wants to have immigration policy.
Okay, this is true. Listen.
We just aren't. We're not. Like, we are not tough enough or strong enough to have mass deportations. We're just not. And I thought that we were maybe, but maybe we could have a couple months of it. And look, as far as the compassion thing, I look at it, why is it not compassion to send them back to their country of origin? Why do they have a right to come to our nation? A nation has a right to be able to invite, be able to reject people of their choosing. And as far as the Christian standpoint of it, in Deuteronomy, in Ezekiel, all throughout the scriptures, there's plenty of examples of repelling people from coming to your nation and prioritizing them in your homeland.
We started the week off reading that bit from the guy, Roman helmet guy. talking about what young people are stepping into the workforce and they are fighting against. They're not just fighting against the third world that comes here, the people south of the border that will come here and work for less than them, or just will be more reliable. Like, are we building work ethic into our young people? Are we expecting it of them? Because that's a big piece of it. It should be assumed that you worked construction during the summer when you were in college, or that you busted your ass doing something else. You worked an internship in your field, whatever that is. Like, you don't get praise for that. That's the standard. Are we not doing that? And whose fault is that? We're the values of busting your ass. Those are American values. Are we not instilling it? My kids are going to get it. I promise you that. Last night, I wanted to take my kids to the pool yesterday, and I yelled at them to come from downstairs. And the one that didn't get down fast enough got a tongue lashing. They all stood basically at attention in a line, and I addressed them down, told them what the requirement is. Go up there, clean up the room, standardize the house, make sure it's good for inspection, and then you can come down, put your swimsuits on, and we'll go to the pool. You get to play after you do the work. My youngest is 3. She's almost 3. She'll be 3 in a couple weeks. I'm like, go clean your crap up. Like, is that not the standard? This is the way I grew up. Like, you get to play after you do the work. And if you're in your 20s, you don't have time to play when it's work time. Or we could just not do that. You just heard Charlie Kirk say that there's not an attitude, there's not an energy to be able to push through what needs to be pushed through. And I think he's probably correct. In the same way that a guy who said, I'm your age and I take TRT and that's how I got to lift really strong. Well, screw you, dude. I spent the last year trying to get myself back into shape, and it's going to take me another 9 months to get my lifts up. So what? That's just what it takes. We don't get to push a button and then have the thing we want. This Amazon mentality is not good for America. It's never been, which is why almost all of us that are old enough to remember better would push that button and delete the internet. That instantaneous gratification. Hey, I wonder what the longest cruise was for a U.S. aircraft carrier. It pops back up. That's kind of awesome. It's really helpful. It would probably be better if we had to go to a book for it, to be fair. For work ethic, for mentality. Unless you already have that mentality, and then in which case it just allows you to do more work. But if that is your work, actually JP Sears did a really good bit on people who are optimizing AI the other day in a very provocative way. He was pointing out and saying how silly it was that there are AI people who just do AI all day, and they don't know how to do anything on their own. Their only functionality is asking the computer to do work for them. Not impressive. Not to me. Now, if it's a shortcut because you already learned the long way, cool, very good. But you should have to put the work in, I would think. That was also an American value, for whatever it's worth. All right, here is the other reason I know that it's not getting voted out. Because the elections don't actually mean anything. Okay? Election fraud has been the standard, and I think it's been the standard if you talk to the guys that are into this stuff, probably since about 2000, 2001, during that decision when we were like, oh, maybe we should put it into a machine. I saw Mike Lindell complaining about it yesterday. I saw a video of him feeding it to the machine. He got no receipt. You have no idea who you voted for. You have no way to prove it. And when everyone goes like, yeah, well, that's just what happens like when you do it. It didn't used to be the case. There used to be a piece of paper that was validated and it was locked in and theoretically you could audit it. And I haven't heard the allegations of election fraud nearly as much from the people prior. I'm sure it happened. Dead people voted, stuffing ballot boxes, all kinds of but they had to do it manually. They actually had to manually go do the thing. And now it's just an algorithm. Or maybe we just can't find a couple of flash drives that have all the votes on them. Or maybe those flash drives got swapped out for some other thing. Prove it's not. I don't trust a thing that you punch into a machine and then you just wait. If your only answer is I plug it into AI and whatever AI gives me is the answer, or I plug it into an algorithm, or I plug it into I plug this little thing in and then it spits out the answer, who's the new leader, that scares the shit out of me. And it should scare the crap out of you. It's not the first time this stuff has been happening. There have been levels of election fraud for a long time. But if you run on fixing the election fraud and then you think we're going to have a fair election the next time around and you didn't fix it, then who's the dummy? And who's dumb for listening to you?
In Arizona, he hired the ninjas. What were they called?
Yeah. The cyber ninjas.
The cyber ninjas.
I'll give you an example of where it has been determinative, and that's in my home state of Indiana, St. Joseph County. The gentleman you previously worked for, David Axelrod, Barack Obama, got on the ballot because Democrats in that county submitted fraudulent ballot petition signatures. People, including the Democrat county chair, went to jail over that. Barack Obama should not have been on the primary ballot in the state of Indiana.
But that's not a voting. That's not a voting issue. Like that's something.
Well, it is a voting
Indiana
issue
should
because
deal
he was on the ballot and
That's
people
not
could
a
vote
Save
for him. And he
America
shouldn't.
Act.
Imagine arguing that someone getting in through the primary is not an election or a voting issue. And by the way, the primaries are where the evil actually happens, I think, most of the time. Because the people that you wanted to see do reform, they don't make it through the primaries. The people that are the normal people that you'd want to see actually do the stuff that you tend to believe, like regular people believe, they don't make it through the primaries. You got to get through the corporate machine, the party machine. You have to get through whatever this mechanism is. This is the fake part of it, for whatever it's worth, as we're doing the overlap of fake and gay.
Issue though, that's not a, they're stealing the elections, illegals are voting. That's an Indiana issue because Indiana is the one that determines who's on their ballots.
How did that get determined?
How did that get determined? It was finally exposed 2 years later. It went through the courts, and several people found themselves in jail.
Finally.
But that's the problem. It didn't happen. They didn't find it before he was on the ballot. It took years after.
Do you?
All right. And there's people making arguments. Well, like, it's not really that bad. Okay, sure. It's not really that bad. This happened in Wisconsin. We covered that race a little bit, so I want to do the follow-up. This is maybe the three most uncomfortable moments of live television that I've ever witnessed, and we're going to just kind of embrace it for a second, and we're going to watch it. Imagine finding out that there are missing flash drives that contain votes. So it's not a box of votes, and we have to count them, and they got lost in transit, or we can't account for where they are, or the transportation is delayed to the main shipping because there was weather or something like that. And yeah, that was Kinzinger sitting there too, making the argument. So that's not an election problem. Sure, dude. Whatever you say. We're going to watch this bit. This is as wild a thing as you could find. And then tell me that you're going to vote your way out of this.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's the thing.
This is NBC's live feed.
Yeah. Here's let's look at it this way.
What are we looking at here, Guy? Oh, what we're looking at is that they said they're not going to get the rest of the results in and counted because they lost 5 USB drives.
Kind of indefinitely waiting for them to get their act together here and get the sticks and bring them back and go on. And we've got folks here who are working real late. And I don't think we want to, keep them here to, this could go 90 minutes. And it's 90 minutes of me saying, have you heard of any other athletes running for Congress? It's like I know we've come so far here. It's been 4 hours since polls closed. It's been an unbelievably interesting and intense night here. And
I'm just showing you that this is a live broadcast. Election night results for the gubernatorial primary in Wisconsin. And they just lost the votes. They were counting and then they stopped. Didn't they do that in 2020 as well? Like, it was just like the counting and then they're like, yeah, we're just going to shut it down and then we're going to call the election for somebody else.
And it really is coming down to this one giant, update in Milwaukee. But man, we waited 90 minutes for them. They did this whole procession, and then they find out there's nothing on the sticks.
Here's the real part that needs to be added for context. The guy who ends up winning the primary, David Crowley, and sure, let's say he won. That's fine. Do you want to try to make that argument when he was the county executive for Milwaukee County, and Milwaukee County lost 5 USB sticks full of whatever the votes were on them, and they went and loaded them and found out there was nothing there. And so then it's like, well, now we got to go get the other ones, or we got to find the backups, or we got to figure it out. And then you're going to make the argument, well, this is totally secure. There's nothing wrong with it. The county executive in the county where they lost the things that ended up deciding the race was the one who ended up winning. even if everything is on the up and up, this guy's over here making the face that everybody else would too. You're like, this looks really bad. I'm speechless on national television on NBC.
And yeah, so it's just my way of saying, I'm just trying to say the audience here, so I'm not abruptly ending on them. We're
just going to shut down the live.
Doing this because the audience has been with us for 4-6 hours in some cases for this moment that didn't happen, and
you guys were all waiting for the final reveal, and the answer is sorry.
So, folks, I think we are gonna wrap it here for the reasons we're saying here. Just, but I want you to know I hate, doing this to you because you've been. I know you're here for results, and we've come to the point where it's like one thing away. I hope you understand that we just, we got to let everyone here has got to, has been here for a long time. And so I'm just...
He's like, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. Guys, cut the feed. Cut the feed. Something is happening. We don't know what it is. The election results are not going to happen because things just disappeared.
I'm just trying.
The only thing that would make this complete, one of you guys said it in the chat too, is if he just fell over like the died suddenly guys from getting the COVID shot. If he just fell over and was like having a stroke, then that would be a perfect end to it.
Uh-huh.
Oh my God.
Okay. Oh, I need.
Make the motion to cut the feed.
So this is okay. Okay,
so
folks, here's what's happening.
Shot.
I'm doing this is sort of a cut-in thing. I have to. They're gonna.
Someone is talking in my ear, and now I'm going to try to give you the information. Here we go.
Let me set this so it's.
Can you? Sorry.
Yeah.
Producing the producer, Melissa. Do we want to do Wisconsin results in these updates, or how do we want to parse these out?
Have you guys ever?
Okay.
Right. If you want to know how the sausage gets made, this is how live TV goes when the script goes away, and there's no more information to talk about. They ran out. They hit the bottom of the sump pump in the pond.
Okay, so we're doing this is like kind of a cut-in thing. We're gonna tape here that they're gonna insert into News Now. So if you'd like, you can watch us put this together. Yeah. Here's the thing.
And then they cut. That was it. That's the end. The obvious thing that you have to try to explain is we have to go away now because the county executive for the county that is missing 5 flash drives full of votes is ahead and ends up winning, and we don't know what the answer is, and this is live. So we're going to go put together some sort of montage to make it make sense. You can actually hear the sound of the bottom. It's like the sound of a straw when you're drinking a milkshake. It's like, that was it. That was the end. There's no more left. You're just getting bubbles now. It's just noise and nothing. There's no substance anymore. And they ran out of it. What an awkward moment. I've literally never seen that on live television. And those are the primaries. So they don't even really, that's not even really an election issue, except that it is. Except you can't tell me there's secure elections if there's weird shit like that happens. It'd be one thing if people were like, okay, we're going to cut the feed and we're going to go to another thing. We'll come back to you when there's more results. We're just waiting for these things to tally up there. It's like, no, they actually were supposed to give us the big reveal. And the big reveal was, oops, we lost and or the flash drives were empty with the votes on it because we count votes on flash drives. And I'm pretty confident this is something Donald Trump brought up. I've gotten unlimited use out of these 20. 19. Number 19 of the 20 promises. Again, I think the top 3 are the most important, and this one. 1, 2, 3, and 19. Because all the rest of the stuff is just like there's just normal government stuff in there. Or they're like things that sound nice, like end weaponization. It's like, yeah, you didn't do that either. Secure the elections, same day voting, voter identification, paper ballots, proof of citizenship. That seems so not freakishly weird to try to do. And 70 or 80% of Americans think that's okay. And we can't get it because the government is shut down and it's the Democrats' fault. Okay. That's how I think that we're not voting our way out of it. That's why I think we're at the intersection here. That's why I brought this meme back up again. It needed to be brought up. Things come out, they're either fake or they're gay. And we're in the middle of both. And that makes people jump off ship. Whether it's this ship, Abe Lincoln, literally jump off ship, or whether it's metaphorically jumping off ship, doing this one, you guys saw it on today's thumbnail. By the way, if you didn't notice in today's thumbnail, I got AI to put the faces of Daniel Bongino, Kristi Noem, and Tulsi Gabbard on the people who jumped the ship. Just saying. 2 voluntary, one. Was it 3 voluntary? 3 voluntary. Yeah, those are 3 voluntarily jump off the ships. And I wouldn't be surprised to see more people leave too, because not everybody wants to be part of a team that's losing when it's pretty clear that there's a loss. And some people are going to need some mental health counseling coming up in November. So if you guys are a suicide counselor of some kind, you're about to have maybe a really, really good MAGA influx into your business as people recognize all the things that have been said for the last 18 months that are complete garbage. Those actually were all false. And the ship actually has a huge hole on it. It's going down. And there is no lifeboat anymore. It's over. It's over for that one. Boop. The end. How do we like that? Do we have anything fun? Yes, we do have something fun. I have been working on fitness. Like I told you, I have a friend who is significantly more fit than me. That's Steve Friend, even though I can probably outbench him. Steve Friend is a runner. Stud runners always tell you about their running. Here's a little bit that George Hill sent me about runners, talking about running. If you've ever heard somebody come up to you and tell you about how many runs they've done, this is 100% accurate. I resist telling you about my runs, but I did get in 4 miles yesterday, so no big deal. And I'll probably get in some more today. Here's a running palate cleanser.
You know, at some point in your 30s, you got to pick your crisis. Everybody gets one. Some guys start golfing. Some guys get really into bourbon. All of a sudden, they've got a library of the shit. Can't just have a drink anymore. No, dude, try this one. It's a single barrel wine cask aged 12 years. Pal, didn't I see you drink a Bud Light out of a shoe at a wedding last year? Now you're swirling bourbon in a crystal glass, talking about notes of oak. I don't smell oak, pal. You know what I smell? Fear. Your parents are getting old. So are you. Some guys get really into cooking meat. In the backyard, smoking a brisket for 14 hours, avoiding your family. Meat's at 187 internally. Okay, Mike, how are you internally? Not good. Some guys start getting up at 4 in the morning, posting a picture of a dark room with weights in it, with the caption, time to work. Pal, you sell insurance. Go back to bed. I picked the worst one, running. Apparently, I just woke up one day and thought, you know what would fix everything? What if I just ran away? Like, can you get more symbolic than that? Literally trying to outrun mortality. And for what, too? It's not like I'm in this insane level of shape or anything. I'm just in pain all the time now. Like, ultimately, there's really no reason to be doing this. For thousands of years, if you saw a grown man running, that means something had happened. A bear, a fire, the British, whatever. Now you drive through a suburban neighborhood on any given morning, and you'll see at least 5 36-year-old men with a wife and kids voluntarily running 8 miles. Why? You don't just wake up at 35 and download Strava because everything's going great. There was an incident. Maybe you hurt your back putting on your socks. Maybe you went up the stairs and realized you're like way too out of breath. And suddenly you're buying a $280 pair of shoes that come in highlighter yellow or neon pink. The worst part about running is it becomes your personality a little bit. No, I can't drink tonight. I got 5 miles in the morning. Runners love telling people how much they got to run or how much they ran. Got 5 in before work. But I get it now. It's proof. Heart works. Lungs work. Legs work. Death remains somewhere behind me. And you know, one day he's gonna catch you, but not if you can't maintain a sub 9-minute pace for 5 miles, bitch. So pick your costume for existential crisis. Me, I'll be running. No emergency, no destination, just a grown man in $280 shoes trying to outrun the linear passage of time.
It's sub 8-minute miles in my case. No big deal. Not trying to brag, but I'm working on making it sub 7-minute miles. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, for sure. That's what it is, right? And nobody cares. Nobody cares less than the people that know you and have known you for long enough. So I'll make you guys an offer. For those of you that want to post your run to somebody who does care, I'll care for you. You can join us. Free membership, KyleSeraphin.com. Just get an account. If you have a Rumble account, it's very easy to do as well. And then you can just post your stuff. You can let us know how fast you're running, and we'll cheer you on. I'll cheer you on. I don't care if anybody else does. I care what you're running. Mm-hmm. Unless your name is Susan Collins, in which case I hope you stop running and go and die in peace with your grandchildren. All right, that's today's show. I hope you guys had fun. I look forward to hearing from whatever you guys want to do. You could tell me about your running experience or using TRT or how you're all natty and you're getting ripped and jacked on your own by putting in the work, or how many summers you did construction. You guys can do that tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time. It's all the normal places. It'll be on Locals. It's on Rumble. It's on YouTube. It's on X. If you're a subscriber on any of those places, you can get the number, you can dial in, you can tell us all your great stuff that you do, or that you're a lazy slob and you just want to hang out with the Treehouse crew and drink beers. I'm cool with that too. Knock yourselves out. Look forward to seeing you guys then. I hope you have a fantastic Thursday as we close out this week. Don't jump ship from this one, even if everybody else is. God bless you. See you tonight.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.